power. And Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It was voila, Monday morning, so you know.
It's one of those, eh?
Yes.
Dr. Masi Korir.
Good morning, Latif.
How are you?
Good.
Good to see you again this week.
I shall say like do good to be seen.
Yeah.
I'm learning from the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. How was your weekend?
The body day inside the clothes.
Very good.
In fact, let's teach her that one. Eh?
You should teach me
Body
that one.
day inside clothes.
Okay. I shall have to write it down first. Say it a few times,
So
like
basically,
3-5 times.
I ask you, how you day?
Does that mean how am I doing?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm doing very well.
No.
The weekends are very short nowadays.
That's not how you respond.
You do what?
Body day inside clothes.
Body day cyclone.
Yes.
It's like, I'm all right. You know, things are just going on as,
Yeah.
you know, what can we expect?
You still, your body
Borrowing
still
from
fits.
the West.
Your body still fits. How do you do?
How do you do? Who came up with that greeting, by the way? How do you do?
How do you, it's a British thing. How do you do? It's a
Then
British
how do you
thing.
do?
Yeah.
Like,
I
okay.
do.
Yeah. And then Kenyans is otherwise.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Otherwise, yep.
Otherwise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Welcome to the show. Today we will have some lengthy discussions on various matters that affect the country. Number one, we'll be looking at the shocker that is expected to be in Jubilee. Is it a shocker? Is it not? We'll also be looking at, of course, coronavirus and how the government is responding to coronavirus, how Kenyans are responding to coronavirus, the war against coronavirus. We'll be looking at corruption as well. We have to remember that a big enemy called corruption still lurks around, so we've got to deal with it. So this is what we'll be discussing. However, let's start with coronavirus. In numbers, 672 total number of corona positive cases in the country.
This is true. The numbers continue to rise, and there are talks of border wars, country to country, and diplomatic tiffs here and there in terms of who's going to close what. Tanzania and Kenya having that issue already. Uganda and Kenya having that issue, until we saw yesterday that now they're being very specific about truck drivers and the new measures that are going to be taken concerning them. Because looking at the cases that came out of Uganda just on Friday, Saturday, a majority of those cases being Kenyans. And then saying that we see a lot of the spread as a result of truck drivers who are then traversing the borders. But if we look worldwide, the numbers have crossed what we expected them to by today. 4,180,305 cases around the world, with 283,000 deaths and 1,492,052 cases having recovered. We now have over 10,000 cases in South Africa. Now, if we want to look at this by country, we see now that the cases are rising on the African continent. Again, this is attributed to the fact that more vigorous testing is taking place. However, people are getting a little bit worried then about the number of cases that have been seen. So
10,000 cases in South Africa. How many deaths in South Africa?
Okay, well, let me look very closely at that. 10,015 cases in South Africa with 194 deaths, right? So on Friday, we were at 8,500 cases in South Africa. We have an increase of about 1,500 cases between Friday and the end of yesterday. Egypt is hot on its heels at 9,400 cases with 525 deaths. Morocco at 6,000 cases still. Algeria at 5,732 cases. Now, interestingly enough, Nigeria on Friday, Nigeria was just shy of 3,000 cases. By the end of yesterday, Nigeria now has 4,399 cases, with Lagos State Governor now saying that even though he had loosened measures on the lockdown, he is very tempted today to make a statement that Lagos will go back into full lockdown. That's just in Lagos State.
What's tempting him?
The increase in cases.
All right, and what's
And
stopping
these are
him?
not. The interesting thing is that these are not positive cases of people who were in quarantine. This is because of the mass testing that has been rolled out around the city of Lagos, and they found that people who come in for testing are being found positive. So these are people who've been milling around, walking about, doing all sorts of things, going to the market as if nothing was the problem. And this is what has fueled this decision. What's stopping him? I think he was kind of giving a warning yesterday, but I think the warning now will go to action today. Because they're likely to see an increase in those
How many
cases.
deaths?
143 deaths in Nigeria. Ghana, with the same number of cases, 4,263, around the same, has 22 deaths. So they've increased they've upped their testing, amongst one of the highest in Africa, and they've been able to keep their death toll quite low.
But they've started relaxing their measures.
Yes, they have. Understand that Ghana was on total, not just specific towns in Ghana like Kumasi and Accra, but the entire country was on a total lockdown. And they also did what South Africa did when they increased the lockdown by another 3 weeks. So they're seeing that there's a possibility of them now reducing or rather loosening the hold on the lockdown there. Numbers that are coming out of Tanzania by Friday, we were told that there were just an extra 29 cases after the weekly update. There are rumors flying in very many directions that this is not the true picture of what the reality on the ground is. And all sorts of border row. We have people in Migori complaining that the border is still porous. Taveta also complaining that there are people crossing back and forth, wanton abandon. And
Zambia has closed the border.
Zambia has closed their border as well. We're going to hear some things. We're going to hear some word about some of the border closure today, in terms of what could or couldn't happen. And then there are calls from, the neighbors of Tanzania to tell the truth about the status. 502 cases is what they're reporting. 509 cases, I beg your pardon, is what they're reporting, with 21 deaths right now. All right.
I think what comes out clearly with the Tanzania situation, and luckily or unluckily, Dr. Mulu had warned us about it, is the issue of cooperation and coordination between countries, because this cannot be won by one country. Because you see, with Tanzania having the issues they're having, their doubts on their kits, the lack of testing, then it sort of spills over to the other countries. Kenya is at risk, Rwanda is at risk, everyone that is around Tanzania is at risk. So I think for me, probably this is a time Museveni should make another phone call to his counterparts across the region and have that conversation again, because
They should just close the borders. I mean, why have a back and forth? Kenya should close all its borders. This is it. If you've already decided that no international flights are going to happen, just close the border with Somalia has always been closed. Anyway, close that border, close the border with Uganda, close the border with Tanzania. Just
close everywhere.
Close. Only necessary needs are going to be allowed. Uganda, between Kenya and Uganda, there's only trucks that are allowed to pass. Kenya and Tanzania,
we're not sure what's happening there.
I'm not sure what's allowed to pass.
Yeah, at least even those, and the truckers that are allowed to pass to Uganda have to be tested.
Yeah.
They have to be tested.
They've got to be certified. They've already been told if you're leaving the port of Mombasa, you've got to have that certificate for you to even enter the port of Mombasa. And then now you'll use that, and it's valid for only 14 days to cross into Uganda. You see?
Well, yeah.
And they're also saying we'll test you at the border as well, which is... It's what should be done. I'm sure it's the same thing that's happening between Uganda and Rwanda. They have those stricter measures and tighter measures. Just do the same thing with Tanzania. I mean, what's this back and forth? Oh, let's wait for what Magufuli tells us. Zambia has come to that conclusion that we are closing our border with Tanzania. Because of all the cases. Zambia has 267 confirmed cases with 7 deaths. Right? And many of those, 76 of new cases, have come from lorry drivers and commercial sex workers at the border town of Nakonde. So basically, they've decided, hey, okay, this is a hotspot, close. I think Kenya and Tanzania have been playing the same game. It's just that Magufuli speaks it out openly. Ours, we don't speak it out openly, but we are operating the same.
Same strategy.
Same strategy.
True.
It's
likely in the coming days to see very many more cases. We don't know what the rollout of testing is supposed to be. And just listening to the briefing yesterday and hearing what was said, there were many questions that came forth in terms of, again, capacity of testing. I don't know if I can remember correctly, we're looking at about over time now, almost 30,000 tests having been done in Kenya, a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
Whereas we have some countries who are doing that per day.
In terms of testing, we are doing badly. And I was looking yesterday at some of the promises and things that the government has said over time. And it was on 22nd April, the CS said, by June we'll have done 250,000 tests. Look at where we are, and this is mid-May. I don't think we'll hit that target. So I don't know who's under what premise these targets are put. Are they just put out there so that we think something is happening, or is there anything that backs it up? Because by the time our whole CS comes and says by June we are doing 250,000 tests, surely they must have been informed by something, knowing that we can do that. Then between then and now, it's been all manner of stories that, we don't have the swabs, we don't have, I don't know what kind of kits to, that is part of the diagnostic kits, because it's not just the kit itself. We don't have the virus transport media. There's been a lot of, issues around testing that have just been excuses and excuses.
Which shouldn't be.
We just don't become clear of it. Let's take a break, take a look at weather. As we go into the weather, today's proverb: when a king has good counselors, his reign is peaceful. When a king has good counselors, his reign is peaceful. What defines a man is the circumstances and the people around him. And if they're good, he turns out good. This is a Ghanaian proverb, and it comes in very handy when you're talking about the government of Kenya, Jubilee, shocker, and all other headlines. 20 minutes after 6. Good morning.
This Monday morning, it's partly cloudy in Nairobi at 16 degrees. Chance of rain still high. It's holding up in the clouds there, but we'll see possibility of that pouring down this afternoon with highs of 23. Taking a look into Nyeri this morning, it's mostly cloudy at 16 degrees. Thunderstorms are forecasted for the afternoon with highs of 23 as well. Nakuru at 15 degrees is partly cloudy this morning. Highs of 23 as the rain comes down. In Eldoret at 14 degrees is mostly cloudy. We'll see thunderstorms scattered around the town with highs of 22 and lows of 13. 21 degrees in Kisumu this morning at mostly cloudy conditions. Chances of showers are very high. Highs of 26 and lows of 19. It's raining in Mombasa this morning at 25 degrees. We'll see highs of 27 today and rain throughout most of the day. Malindi is experiencing showers at 26 degrees. Thunderstorms to follow later with highs of 28 and lows of 25. Taking a look into Kampala, when the rain is coming down already at 19 degrees, we'll see highs of 25 and lows of 17. Dar es Salaam at 24 degrees is mostly cloudy. Rain showers expected to come down early afternoon with highs of 29 and lows of 24. Johannesburg is clear this morning at 8 degrees. Sunny conditions all through today with highs of 21 and lows of 7. Taking a look into Lagos, thunderstorms already this morning at 26 degrees. It's likely to be rainy throughout this Monday. Highs of 31, and lows of 24. New York is clear skies at 13 degrees when the sun comes up. Currently at close to midnight, it's clear skies all through, but they will wake up to showers. Highs of 17 and lows of 10. In Paris, light rain showers being experienced across the city of Paris. At 8 degrees, we'll see highs of 14 and lows of 6. The rain is likely to carry through the day. And finally, for now in London at 6 degrees, it'll be clear skies all through, cloudy conditions following the afternoon with highs of 12 and going down to a chilly low of 4.
It's 25:06. This is Situation. It's going to be
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
And Dr. Marcy Korir. So let's get into the headlines.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
Well, the obvious one here is a Jubilee shocker. Wielding big stick, bolstered by a formal coalition with KANU and with other parties in the wings, Uhuru moves to stamp his foot in the Senate with today's State House meeting, as Murathe claims that time is up for majority leaders Murkomen and Kihika. I think what we are seeing here is Tanga Tanga Kieleweke back amid the pandemic. These things, I think the storm was brewing underneath. Now it has erupted. It's full blown.
It's full blown.
It's full blown.
All guns blazing.
Yes.
We'll be
Gloves
looking at
out.
this story in greater detail later in the show. But basically what we are seeing here is Jubilee has gone into a post-election coalition with KANU.
Yeah.
We said
And-
somebody was going to get married.
Yep.
With a breakup comes a marriage somewhere else. Right?
Somewhere,
that
true.
was bound to happen. So
So we know who the owner of Jubilee is.
Yep.
Okay, who's wearing the pants? So the person who's wearing the pants has basically brought in another girl, and this girl is called KANU, new revamped KANU with a new logo, looking all red and green and all, fresh from the salon, right? Yes, so this is it.
And if you see the KANU Secretary General Salat says, if an opportunity arises, why not? This is a political process and parties are formed for purposes of getting power.
Kabisa.
We are not reinventing the wheel.
Kabisa.
So if there's a groom and you're ready as a bride,
let's go.
let's go.
Let's roll. So they are saying that the president has called senators to State House today for a meeting in which he's expected to just basically announce the new leadership of the Senate. And the Senate majority leader is rumored to be going to become Samuel Pogisio. Senator Pogisio will be the Senate majority leader, replacing Kipchumba Murkomen. And then the senator from Murang'a will become the whip.
The whip.
Replacing Susan Keheka. Irongo Kangata. is going to be the majority. Let's see how this happens.
Let's see how it
Of course, the Tanga wing are throwing tantrums all over left, right, and center. Already complaining, and the Bible verses here and there. Kipchumba Murkomen had a Bible verse yesterday, and the Joshua chapter 1 verse 9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified or dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go.
Okay.
To which ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna responded, John 19:30, it is finished.
I love it. There we go.
We'll look at that in detail. Other headlines.
Right. So concern, let's look at Kenya. I wanted to talk about COVID, but we can't not talk about that. But let's look at, on the standard, Kenya to borrow massive 823 billion shillings in the new budget. Haunting affair, the Big Four agenda leads losers as the Treasury denies additional funds to nearly all state agencies with health, agriculture, water and teachers among the few gainers. And look, with COVID or not, we saw that the Big Four agenda was going to take a huge pelting, and this is what we see happening already. The Big Four, as ambitious as it was, needed a huge capital injection to get it moving. It needed goodwill.
But I think we need to be specific with the Big Four, because if on the one hand we are saying health is gaining 21 billion and the Big Four is losing, so let's say manufacturing is losing.
Right. Health in this case, in the eye of COVID, is gaining. Health in general
is probably not gaining much.
Especially that when we look at the Big Four, health was pegged on universal health coverage, right? So it's on the windowsill, about to fall off the ledge. This one is not being looked at here. The government has been forced to roll back its belt-tightening measures as it moves to finance a 2.73 trillion budget in the next financial year, even as COVID-19 pandemic decimates its tax revenues. Instead, the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Kuya Tani plans to borrow 823 billion in the next financial year, beginning July, an increase of 44% from the 571 billion that he had initially projected he would borrow to plug the budget deficit. In its statement, a document that lays out the government's development plan in the medium term had estimated Kenya's total budget at 2.75. However, this has to be revised down following a negative outlook in the country's growth prospects. So they're looking at the losers in this case being the presidency, interior, devolution, development of ASAL, defense, foreign affairs, university education, and so on. The winners, interestingly enough, the losers previously were those that I had just mentioned. The winners right now are, development of ASAL, early learning, health, infrastructure, water and sanitation, crop development and agricultural research, fisheries and aquaculture, and the blue economy, as well as tourism, the fight against corruption, NIS, Teacher Service Commission, and county governments. All right.
I'm quickly just looking at what we are calling the winners. If you look at health, it has moved from 92 billion to 114 billion in actual allocation. But you still have infrastructure. I don't know which infrastructure this is, at 186B. So
infrastructure is probably roads.
Infrastructure in this country is roads. Roads and railway.
So if you look at the situation we are in now, is that your most critical bit to finance?
No, you still need it. Remember what is happening with the floods. Floods are wiping off bridges, roads, so you'll need to repair all this infrastructure. Basically, we're just getting our infrastructure, as we had built it, is being battered by the floods. I think you still need to think about, you've got to make the connectivity still working. You've got to repair very many bridges. You've got to repair very many roads. You've got to build new roads. Where there were some maybe all-weather roads, you'll still have to. I look at it from that angle.
Well, that could make sense. But looking at absolute figures, health has always suffered.
Yep.
Health has always been underfunded. We're always playing around 6-7%. So even when you move it to 114B from the 2.1 trillion budget, it is still not where their budget declaration is.
It's a paltry figure.
Yeah, and then you look at water and sanitation. It has changed by 13 billion to 76 billion. Still, with I hope part of the infrastructure is infrastructure that addresses sanitation also and water, because your 76 billion for water and sanitation is minimal. And remember, water and sanitation still goes back to your health needs.
Yep. So
I think for me, probably we should be looking at, or rather, probably the government should be looking at these line items holistically from end to end and see what feeds into the other one. You look at big four enablers and drivers. The big four, we know there is health there is food security, there's manufacturing. So what are these enablers and drivers that could not be budgeted for in this particular, individual line items like health, water and sanitation, crop development? What are these enablers that need their own 127 billion funding that could not have been put in these other, specific budgets?
I think, to be honest, 2.7 trillion shillings we are living way beyond our means. If we are going to be borrowing 823B, in about 10 or 15 years ago, this was our annual budget. Now this is what we are borrowing. Yeah. Come on, I think it's just a bit too high. It's too high. 26 minutes to 7. Let's take a look at traffic, and then the conversation continues. Good morning.
Let's look at the situation on the roads this Monday morning. It's not so bad. Coming off Mombasa Road is not causing any issues so far, so good. Well, I could see an influx of people back into the city this weekend. We know for a fact that some people may have left on Friday and are trying to get their way back in this morning. We'll have a look. We want to also see how Outer Ring looks today. There was a bit of a mess there Friday morning. We'll see that may have gotten a little bit better. Right now, everything around the city looks okay. Nothing major going on at the moment. If anything does change, we'll be sure to let you know. You also let us know what you see. Spice FMKE, that's how we like you to reach us on Twitter. And we'll see how we can keep it moving this Monday morning.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Another related stories, short stories. 823 billion is what
mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
When he says 823 billion, 323 billion amount of people will lose.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Gaining a bit more in the allocation. The National Intelligence Service, of course, also gaining in some allocation. You know what that means. With 2022 coming, they're always what they say. You know what they say, right?
But I don't. Okay, I'm no economist, and I'm very poor with these financial things. But I tend to think that there's some duplication. There could be duplication, because transport, then you have infrastructure on this other end. You have housing and urban development, maybe infrastructure is on this other end. I don't know. Are we duplicating things?
Remember, there's a ministry called Ministry of Transport, Housing and Infrastructure. They're different. They're three state departments. Transport is transport, housing is housing, infrastructure is infrastructure.
So what does transport cover?
Transport is things like, Kenya Airports Authority.
It includes all. It includes your rail.
Yeah.
It includes your road. And includes sea. So now it deals with all the agencies therein. So Kenya Airways, Kenya Ports Authority.
So the budget there, what does it cover? Does it cover the recurrent budget? Because out of the 2.7 trillion, 1.8 trillion is on recurrent expenditure. So this money that has remained then, can we assume it's for recurrent expenditure that we've cut down on development? Whatever development usually is. Yes. Just looking at it generally on all of these sectors. Because even when you look at energy, ICT, what have we cut on?
There's still going to be a bit of development, but not to the grand scale that they wanted it to be. But you'd have a problem trying to think of why we are budgeting at 2.7. Yeah. This is approaching 3 trillion shillings, right? Just 7 years ago, our budget was a trillion. Less than a trillion. Now it is approaching 3 trillion shillings. Even in these dire times, we are still budgeting such high figures, and we know we are not able to raise this money. And then all of it goes into corruption.
This is an unfortunate thing, because year after year, we still see that 1 trillion shillings is unexplained or unused. And seems to have been lost somewhere in the pockets of the corridors of government. And at the same time, we also realize that we know for a fact, Kamodo Maiganja told us all the time that, the budgets that we have in this country are quite top heavy. And recurrent expenditure, overheads are the majority of these budgets. So is there a way to thin out? Probably governments always need to be looking towards thinning out the top, thinning out the heavy cost on salaries and upkeep of offices.
Yep.
This is the thing. This is where the bulk of the money goes. And it needs to be looked at. If you're going to, because it's unfortunate that in a developing country, very little of your budget goes towards development. So, I mean, those things need to be looked at. Quite seriously, because unfortunately then we see, just look at what has happened with COVID in the last couple of weeks. The money that is needed for development initiative, for example, what you would essentially feed the people in the country who need welfare, you have to ask for donations or you have to ask for help. Money that you would use to boost a healthcare system, which you should ordinarily be using to develop that same system, you have to ask for it from outside, which shouldn't be the case. Right.
Quite unfortunate.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
and I would think because of the pandemic, we would look at, like as an individual, in individual households, people have cut down to essential versus non-essential.
Yeah.
Whatever you have that is essential gets priority and you lay off other things. I would have expected the same, and to see not a 2.7 trillion budget, but I mean, if we need money to maintain roads versus to construct new roads, I would put it in maintaining the ones that are already existing versus starting a whole new, freeway or whatever it is, because you're looking at how the situation is, that it's dire, it's bad.
Right.
They're finding it very hard.
They are finding it hard. But if you want to look at, all of these things are linked one to the other. If you look at central Kenya, if you look at, the South Rift, the North Rift, and what is happening with flooding in the country, like Eric was saying, with the infrastructure that needs to be developed, a lot of these roads have been washed out. So what happens essentially is that people cannot take food to market, for example, because there's no channel for transportation. Now, we often see that in the budgets that come out, or when you pay fuel, buy your fuel or pay for your electricity, for example, there's tax there that goes towards road maintenance. All right. Now, if you want to look at how that would be developed over time, you would hope that it was actually put towards that. Unfortunately, it's not. So now, as the situation is presented to the country, the road network is in a shambles in this country. We have major connecting roads. If you want to look at Western Kenya, Busia, Kakamega, Bungoma, those roads have been washed out. Mai Mahiu Narok, which is a major connector from the central part of Nairobi to the Rift, not happening either because of the rains. Now, you can imagine if road maintenance was taking place as it should over time, we wouldn't have these issues. And you know what? It's all happening at the same time. So then the question becomes for the Kenya Roads Authority, Highway Authority, which one do we do first? And then which one do we save for later? But if we had actually maintained as it were, then probably would not be having this.
Done proper roads when we were doing proper
in the very
roads,
beginning.
Just do a road that is nice and proper. Now having strong winds and then roads are being swept away by wind.
What does that say about the workmanship?
It tells you a lot about the road that you thought you had. Speaking of floods, the death toll has hit 219. After 25 more people died, the total number of deaths from the floods now stands at 219. After 25 more people died in the last 24 hours. Devolution CS Wamalwa says 25 lost their lives countrywide, with more than 58,000 displaced from their homes. He was saying that the most affected areas are around River Nyando, River Nzoia and River Tana, among others. The rains will continue until the end of June this year, and therefore people living along riverbanks should move to safer grounds. More than 3,300 acres of cash crop have been washed away. 1,586 houses swept away. 3 health centers and 3 schools destroyed. Wamalwa spoke at Chepsai Primary School in Lugari constituency when he was making donations to more than 4,000 people who were displaced by the raging water of swollen rivers in Kakamega County. Now, remember what the main rivers that we're talking about are in Nyanza, Nzoia, Nyando, and then the Tana River. But here in Kakamega, other swollen rivers have basically displaced 4,000 people. This is a story that's across the country. And when you see now the CS going and saying, okay, we are bringing in food, we are bringing food donations. In fact, we should stop calling it food donations. This is not a donation. This is feeding the people. It's a government feeding its people. It's not donating. And when the government has this mindset of we are donating, then they come in with one bag and go away until that thing is over. It's wrong. They were receiving rice, mattresses, blankets, face masks, hand sanitizers, and soap.
Right. A lot going on.
If you look at that, not to trivialize COVID, but here we've had 219 deaths so far.
Yep.
219. And we are...
I
feel like we're not talking as much about it as we should.
25 people have died in 24
hours.
Right? When CS Rashid Ahmad is coming to announce, he's saying 24 people have confirmed positive for COVID-19 in 24 hours. Here, Wamalwa is saying 25 people have died in 24 hours. How many people have been displaced in that time? 58,000 people displaced within that 24 hours. This is big. This is a bigger story. And this is what we should actually all just be focusing on and really seeing how to address it.
I think the action that's being taken, unfortunately, is a bit slow in terms of how Kenyans are being helped, or in this case, not helped when it comes to this. Because it's clear that in the time of disaster, it's not about looking for the solution at that point. What you need to do is make sure that these people are taken care of, and that are we trying to do our best to move them out of that area in that time, give them what they need to be able to survive for that period of time, and then start to look towards how we're going to stop this from happening again in the future. And I think the response, unfortunately, has been slow, or it has been ignored, thinking that it's just another cycle that will eventually go away. I always say that one life lost is one life too many. And in this case, where we are looking at, I mean, as damning as it sounds, something that we could have done something about much earlier.
Children of a lesser God. Even for us, this basically just comes to us as the media. When the headline in the Standard is Jubilee shocker, what's the headline in the Nation?
Yeah, well, there we go. Headline in the Nation is Day of Long Knives for Ruto allies.
There you go. 25 people have died. Very many people are displaced. And our headline is on some
nonsensical politics.
Yeah.
So politics. You're not going to change things here or there.
7:15. This is the Situation Room.
everything nice. Alright, okay.
Spice up your life.
Yep, 13 to 7. The situation will continue. So what are the headlines?
Online, mobile, and on radio. www.spiceradio.co.ke.
And yesterday was World Lupus Day. Lupus, this is on page 12 of the Standard. Lupus patients are in pain, living in fear without drugs. Remember, this is one of the conversations we had earlier on when COVID hit because of the hydroxychloroquine. When the French study said that hydroxychloroquine has shown promise in treatment of COVID, what happened globally is that people started looking for the hydroxychloroquine for treatment for COVID-19. And it was bought off the shelves. I talked to the Pharmaceutical Society of Kenya, and what happens is because the number of people who use hydroxychloroquine is few, it's not usually imported in bulk in the country. It's not a lot. So you got that because there was, all of a sudden, there was a mad dash for the drug. There was a shortage. And the people who are living with lupus, 5 million across the world, suffered. So this is a story of Mercy Nasieku. This is written by Mercy Kahenda. Mercy Nasieku. Nowadays there are many Mercies.
That's all over the place.
Nowadays.
So Mercy Nasieku has been living in fear. She's 19-year-old. Because of lupus. And remember, this is a disease that affects the immunity. So they are at higher risk also of COVID because of the state of their immunity.
Yeah.
So because of that, they have to take extra precaution. Wear masks, avoid visitors as much as possible. And I've talked to some of them. They are not seeing any visitors whatsoever. They're just sticking with their family. And it's usually a nightmare when they need to go for their regular checkup, where you need to go and see your doctor, when you need to go do your tests and whatnot. It means now you're going out and you have to interact with people and you'd never know who you will meet. So it's been a tough ride for them. And here Nasieku said, I've ordered hydroxychloroquine, but they are not forthcoming because I do not have a doctor's prescription. How will I survive?
So what happened to doctor's prescription? What's the challenge with getting the prescription?
So this particular lady lives in Kajiado County.
Okay.
I remember you're barred from accessing the Nairobi metropolis.
Okay.
Some of these things are much more available in Nairobi as opposed to the other counties.
This is the prescription that she's talking about, not even the medication itself, right?
This one, you need your doctor. You need your rheumatologist.
So she's not been able to access her doctor.
Because she can't leave.
She can't leave Kajiado. Yeah.
And the only way to get this prescription is by it being handwritten in that thing that you can't read. The way you guys
That's
write.
right.
The way we write.
The doctor cannot. There's no other way the doctor can send her the prescription.
Probably there is a way that can be found to get her the medication. But I remember after there was a mad dash for hydroxychloroquine, it was more strict in that you cannot just go over the counter and say, I want to buy hydroxychloroquine. So you have to have a legitimate prescription, because then you're sure that the person who needs this drug is the person who gets the drug.
So the pharmacist will say, I want a prescription that basically has everything. Stamped from a doctor, letterhead by a doctor, handwritten, not a photocopy, not a scan.
Exactly.
I see.
So it becomes a little bit more challenging.
I see.
Yeah.
Big stories that keep emanating out of that.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that we are able to remember other things, that life still continues for some people with chronic ailments. Diseases are not treatable.
Yeah.
You can only manage it, and it's lifelong. I'm happy that we can still find time for it on our spaces.
Because it's important.
It's
definitely.
important. It's important.
All right. President Obama is not keeping his mouth shut about what he calls the chaotic disaster in terms of Trump's pandemic response. Former President Barack Obama has launched a scathing attack on Donald Trump's handling of the coronavirus pandemic, calling it an absolute chaotic disaster in a leaked web call on Friday night with former members of his administration. Obama also said the Justice Department's decision to drop charges against Michael Flynn, the former Trump national security advisor who pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI in the Russian probe, endangers the rule of law in the U.S. In the audio first obtained by Yahoo News, Obama urges former staffers to join him in rallying behind Joe Biden as he prepares to take on Trump in the November presidential elections. This is coming off some crazy numbers that we've been able to see. In New York alone, 345,406 cases of COVID. New York has more deaths than the African continent has cases.
Okay.
New York alone.
So,
Excuse me.
Donald Trump responded. So there's somebody who tweeted, Barack Hussein Obama is the first ex-president to ever speak against his successor, which was long tradition of decorum and decency. Should anyone really be surprised? And Donald J. Trump tweets, he got caught, Obamagate. Leaked tapes,
Leaked tapes.
Yes.
Right.
Obama is basically even he should shut up.
He's
I think-
campaigning for Biden,
I
of
think he
course.
should shut up.
The
He has, a
airing
right
of
to,
the...
he has a right to speak, but I think he should weigh his words very, very carefully, because it comes out he's campaigning for his former vice, who is running against Trump.
There's so many things.
I
But
see it.
to be fair to Obama, even the 43rd, George Bush spoke about, COVID, where he was calling for an end to partisanship in the nation's continued battle against the coronavirus pandemic. And obviously, Donald J. Trump attacked the 43rd president for not coming to his defense during the impeachment trial. So I think, to be fair enough to the former presidents, 43rd and 44th, they're looking at the situation in America, how things are going south, how the partisanship, where everyone is sticking to their party, and how it's affecting the fight against COVID, and they're speaking out. So to be fair to them, really, as former leaders of such a country, it is in their right. It is well within their rights to speak up and say this
But
and
you see
this
the
is
difference
not
between
going right.
what Obama is saying and what Bush Jr. did? Bush Jr. was basically calling on, he's measured in his words, calling on an end to partisanship. Let's work together. Then the following day, his successor says, this is a guy who's to blame, more or less.
Isn't that true?
Oh, that's
Isn't that true?
Subjective.
Isn't that true?
It's not.
How do you say it's not?
Corona is to blame.
Is to blame?
Corona is to blame for Corona. I mean,
But this is also interesting, but I think another offshoot to that story is that the top infectious disease expert, Anthony Fauci, is among 3 members of the White House coronavirus task force who will self-isolate after potential exposure to the pathogen, according to the U.S. media reporting Saturday. On Friday, reports that Vice President Mike Pence's press secretary had tested positive, heightened fears about senior administration officials catching the virus. Robert Redfield, the director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and Stephen Hahn, the commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration, will self-isolate. But Fauci, who has become the trusted face of the government's virus response, told the network he would undergo a modified quarantine because he had not been in close proximity to the contagious White House staffer. These words, my goodness. Good grief. But okay.
Corona is in the White House, basically.
Corona is in the White House.
Yeah, and then now, of course, the media houses have picked it up and said, look, what's happening in the White House. There's Corona in the White House. Secret Service staff have tested positive. Now White House staff are testing positive. But Trump is still not wearing a face mask.
He is not.
I think this was a tweet by somebody who said that I think for Trump to really see it as a threat, it has to affect him personally.
So
He has to
basically,
fall
Because
into-
otherwise, it is others. A staffer, CIA, it is other
Yeah,
people.
it's everybody else.
Everybody
it has to
else.
be like in the UK.
Trump needs to
Yes.
get it.
Yeah.
This is what
Like
we're saying.
Bojo
in order
got
for
it.
him- Yeah.
Trump should get it.
This is how he's going to understand what it is.
What it is.
I'd like him to get it.
Yeah.
And then he recovers quite fast. You'll never hear the end of it.
Even
This will be good. Like, look, we can all survive. Let's open up the economy.
yeah,
I was down. I got this thing.
I got well.
Did I die?
Oh my
Did
God,
I die?
that would be
Open
a
up.
disaster.
I hope he gets it.
That will be a
I'm a Trump
disaster.
guy.
Yeah.
That's
KPA
going to be a
manager.
mess.
KPA manager, just bring the story back to Kenya. A manager and his wife were held over in a 214 million shillings probe. This is a top manager at the Kenya Ports Authority, and 2 others were arrested on the orders of DPP Nordin Haji, who says Haji wants the 5 suspects, including a private company, be charged with conspiracy to commit economic crimes, abuse of office, failure to disclose private interests, and dealing with suspected property. This man is accused of colluding with a private company, Nyeri Capital Limited, whose managing director is his wife, Jacinta, to siphon hundreds of millions of shillings from KPA. His brother, Alfred Hinga Nyoike, and Peter Ndisho Kinyanjui are directors of this company. So the man in question is a KPA general manager in charge of finance, Patrick Nyoike. Company was registered. This company was to facilitate it's a microfinance. It was lending to people who are contracted by KPA to supply. So it's basically financing the suppliers of KPA, and money is paid to this company directly, and then now the company recovers its money because it's the one that has financed everybody who's supplying here. It recovers its money and then pays off the people. Unfortunately, it's discovered that the company that is receiving all this money, the wife is, the MD, the GM, is the wife of the finance manager.
Right.
The directors of this company are wife and brother to the finance manager. So Nordin Haji, you can imagine, his nostrils were flaring when he was reading this, and then when he was saying,
said,
look,
do something about this.
look, go
This is
and
a
arrest
case,
him.
go and arrest.
5 a.m., as you know how EACC does, you are caught right in your pants. You know, caught in your pants? Literally. 5 a.m. guys are knocking at your door and saying, Toka twende. We are going to answer this. Coming to the top of the hour, we shall take a look at more of these stories and also looking at what's happening at the quarantine facilities in the next hour. Today's proverb is from Ghana. When a king has good counselors, his reign is peaceful. When a king has good counselors, his reign is peaceful. Think of a king, any, who's having a peaceful reign.
Currently?
Yeah, like Donald J. Trump.
I think the ones having a peaceful reign are all the female world leaders.
This is true.
Yes.
Okay.
We shall elaborate in the next hour.
Okay. We are going sexist, shall we? 7 o'clock.
Factual.
Good morning. This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Looking good today. Traffic is actually non-existent, so I guess we can say it's flowing absolutely fantastic. Kangunda Road also the same thing today. Not much in terms of traffic. It's a Monday morning, but most folks are at home. I think that we'll see that a few more vehicles will get off the road this week, and I hope that is the case. All right. In Mombasa and Malindi, it is raining, so the roads are a bit slippery this morning, so please do take care. On this other side of the country, in the western part of the country as well, Kisumu, some showers being experienced in certain parts of the city, so you want to be careful when you're out and about as well. Remember, masks up. You need to be sure that you're protecting yourself and those around you. Getting into public or private transport, you want to make sure that you are protected. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us. Let us know what you see. It's a new week and new things in front of us. Let's keep each other informed.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain
So it's 2
times.
minutes past 7
Ndu
o'clock.
Oko,
This is the situation. Also in
Nigerian
the
Bible.
room this week is Dr. Marcy Korir, KTN's medical journalist. So many countries are reporting some good progress in the fight against COVID-19. Among them, they're led by women. Among the other countries, some are led by men, others are led by women. So let's talk about the ones that are led by women. Just to make it very clear that those are not the only ones that are.
So let's start with New Zealand. Jacinda Ardern. Yeah. New Zealand, let me get you those cases. New Zealand, I think, has not reported any case. Ndu, you are the one with the figures. New Zealand hasn't reported any case.
Any new case.
Any new case. And they're the ones who are slowly opening up. And even before COVID, remember when they had the church attack, the terror attack?
Mosque.
The mosque, yes. And it was quickly, under control. Quickly, things were put in place and measures to prevent further attacks like that. And she was just she was just a new prime minister then.
Yeah.
And, I remember there was a lot of praise for her because of what she had done to contain that situation. And now we are seeing with COVID, they've been able to contain the situation.
Oh, sure. I mean, 1,400 and I think, 1,497 deaths with, 1,497 cases with 21 deaths in New Zealand.
Yeah. And that's
And
at the
in
backdrop of 194,000 tests.
So they went into serious rapid testing.
Yes.
Right.
They locked down the country as well. They took a serious stern measure. Did they lock down the country completely?
Well, no, they didn't, interestingly enough. They also did this citizens' trust kind of thing whereby they said, look, this is what we see, this is what we suggest. And people fell into line and said, okay, well, all right. Let's
Fellow
go
New
do it.
Zealanders, if we treat this thing normally, it treats us abnormally. And they basically listened.
Yes,
Yeah.
They didn't just look at it.
Yeah, whatever, man.
Yeah.
We'll have a sausage and 3 beers.
Yeah.
No. It was, we can see that this thing has the potential to hurt us. And so we're going to listen to what our leadership has said. And I don't think we can ignore the facts that the leadership previously, just like Dr. Mercy is saying, the leadership had shown that they were serious about doing business in the country.
Well, people focused, people centered.
Absolutely. So by the time she's coming around and saying, you know what, again, this is what we need to do,
Yeah.
she had the buy-in of the people.
And even during that time, in fact, she had ordered a lockdown and she was doing Facebook Lives and Instagram Lives and responding to questions. So people she would go on air from her house, the way she's basically just dressed in her home attire. And she's going live and saying, all right, so this is what I'm thinking. This is what's happening. So ask me any questions. And people would ask questions. She'd respond to them. She was there. She was a people's person. She has basically shown herself to be, look, this is for me and you. It's for all of us. Only 39 years old.
Yeah.
Good stuff for her.
Yeah.
I mean, this is good.
The other one is Angela Merkel. Angela, Vice
So we're
Chancellor.
coming from 39 to 93. Okay, go on.
Angela has one of the lowest death tolls in Europe.
Yeah.
Germany has 7,569 deaths, and their numbers are 171,000 confirmed cases. They have tested 2.7 million Germans.
120,000 tests per day.
And initially, they were the one country that was doing the most tests before the US did.
Test, isolate,
Yeah,
and contact tracing.
contact tracing, quarantine.
Follow the formula works.
It works.
Formula works, but
It
the
works.
test is the first. The A squared, it must be the test. B squared plus C squared. If A squared is wrong, this formula is not going to work.
Yeah, it is. So
So-
you have to test, you have to identify and isolate.
And then isolate. How many millions so far again?
2.7
Million.
2,755,770. That means per 1 million population, they are doing 32,000 tests. We have so far in 60 days
Have
done
done
31,000 tests.
Per 47 million population.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's interesting to note that in Germany as well, they had this first kind of testing, what they called the COVID-19 antibody testing, widespread in Germany, but the first of its kind in Europe. And Angela Merkel, I think she surrounded herself by the medical experts, and she said, you know what, these are the guys who have the answers. These are the people we're going to listen to. And so this is how we're going to go through. And it seems that, they've kept the death toll quite low in comparison to other countries who have number of cases equal to those that are present in Germany, and look what they've been able to do.
Yeah. So,
do you want more examples?
Yes.
John, I was looking at Scotland. Scotland is the one with the Nicola Sturgeon.
Yep.
And I don't know if you can get those numbers
Of Scotland?
of Scotland. And the reason I'm picking her is every day they are present to give updates. So they have 6,000 confirmed cases, no deaths reported. None that I can see.
6,000 confirmed cases and no deaths.
Yeah.
This is Nicola Sturgeon's
Nicola Sturgeon.
Scotland.
Let's
And then we
just
had the
confirm that. Sorry?
And then also we look at Taiwan.
Yes,
female
Taiwan and South Korea.
Okay, if we look at Taiwan before we get those numbers, President Tsai Ing-wen and what she's been able to do, successful in the spread, in the curbing of the spread rather, and they were quick to implement travel restrictions and institute health checks. So, and this is one of the things that she said, everywhere you go, there must be a health check.
Yeah.
So people then were able to make sure that they knew their status. That was a thing. After then knowing your status, then you were able to make sure you either quarantined or isolated as was necessary. And then she instituted a lockdown as well and said, look, we're not joking around with this thing. With a population of 23 million, they've had very, very low rates with just under 500 cases.
440 cases.
Imagine, and only 10
6 deaths.
Only under 10 deaths, right?
Yeah, 6 deaths.
specifically.
And they've done 67,000 tests. 440 cases. The other one was South Korea.
South Korea is a man. The woman is in jail.
The woman was thrown in.
The woman was a thief.
No. In South Korea, it's the chief medical officer that has been instrumental.
That's
and it's a lady.
Okay.
Yes, it's a lady. That's how. Yes, please.
Okay.
Women rule.
The president is a man, but now we look for the woman. Okay, the woman is the one who's the one leading the fight.
She's been the one giving the updates, the pressers, everything, running the COVID response team. They've had 10,909 cases, 256 deaths. They've tested 668,000 people, which translates to 13,000 tests per million population.
Yeah.
Yeah. And remember, South Korea, initially before all these other countries came in, South Korea had been lauded for its efforts. After they identified their case 31, did contact tracing, further testing, isolation, quarantine, all the measures that are needed to be put in place.
Right.
So the chief medical officer in South Korea is the one that has been instrumental in, putting things together.
If we take a jump back to Scotland, for example, we looked at those numbers and 6,067 cases, 0 deaths. Out of all of those cases, no deaths whatsoever. So she seemed to have that in place as well. Denmark, Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, one of the first countries in Europe to shut down its borders and put the country in lockdown early.
Right.
Didn't play with this at all.
Right.
And then at the same time, they put in economic measures to make sure that people who were on the lower end of the rung when it came to now being able to fend for themselves were taken care of 100% by the government. They were fruitful because now what they have been able to do now is to release their hold on the lockdowns. Big corporations have started to bring employees back. If you want to see, if you want to compare to the US, whereby the work from home policy has been extended till September. So people are still not allowed to come out until then. But now Denmark has been able to open up and say, all right, let's see if we can come back to work.
They're doing well.
They're doing very
doing
well.
well.
Finland with a 34-year-old woman prime minister.
Well, let's look.
They're also doing well.
They're also doing
Okay.
Go.
As Ndu looks up Finland, let me come closer home to Ethiopia. Ethiopia, okay, we know the president is a lady. The Minister for Health is a lady, Leah Tadesse. No, I had their numbers here. They've just disappeared again. But Ethiopia has had one of the lowest numbers. If you compare Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia has had low numbers in the region. Even their deaths have been fewer.
But we give credit to the Prime Minister, all right?
Ethiopia with 239
He runs the government.
deaths.
The president is largely ceremonial.
239 cases.
Health Minister, it's good.
Leah Tadesse, female.
This is female. Let's look at Tanzania. It has a health minister
Who
is female.
Who was was she diagnosed with the COVID?
No, it was rumors.
It was rumors. Okay. Umi.
No, you're looking at Tanzania.
Tanzania doing terrible.
Where we have a woman health minister.
Why are you spoiling this party, Eric? Why are you spoiling this party?
Okay, let's come back to Finland if we can.
With the Prime Minister,
With 5,962 cases, 4,000 of those cases have recovered.
Wow.
And have been sent home. Not recovered and saying, let's look at you. Have been recovered and sent home, and 267 deaths. Interestingly, in Finland, one of the other countries who did not have a certain lockdown per se, but also adopted the same like New Zealand did and said, okay, this is what we have going on. This is what we suggest that you do. And of course, the people picked up the suggestion of the government and said, all right, we can do that. It's also interesting that they adopted the home quarantine. And then dialing into what they chose as a collar medic. And if you have symptoms, call the doctor. They can tell you what to do. If you need to go to get medicine, that's what we'll do. But don't come into hospital. There are things that we can manage at home. And people listened. It's like you pick up the phone and say, dial 3. And people dial 3. On the other end of the phone, the answers that you needed are there.
There's somebody.
There's somebody there.
And this person is asking, "Atuko happy?"
No.
Unasikia? Hiyo unakohoa. Hiyo sio corona. Hiyo ni homa tu. Hiyo ni homa. Wewe tutaongea baadaye. Basically, you find somebody on the other end who listens to you and responds to your concern. Right? This is the problem with governments.
You know, it's funny, but it's true. It's not.
Hello.
It's true.
Hello.
No.
Hello. Ai, huyu hata sijui anasema nini. Unasikia, hebu sikiza kama utamsikia. Hello. Unasema nini? Nasikia kama nakohoa. Uko wapi? Niko kwa nyumba. Wapi? These are numbers. Anyway, it's very good stories to see. I mean,
there's something in there.
Credit to, yes, there's something about female leadership that also should be looked at. And what these women are doing. As young as 34-year-old, 39-year-old, and as old as Angela Merkel, right? And what they've done to their governments, how they've cultivated trust of the citizenry. It's not just them, but they have maintained that trust of the citizenry. So when citizens are told, this is what I want us to do, people listen to her. And if it was Kenya, that's a huyu.
Mama anatuambia nini?
Huyu mama anakaa huko na watoto wako wanakula chakula, anatuambia tukae kwa nyumba. This is the kind of feedback that we'll be getting in Kenya. 7:15, let's take a look at weather, and then the conversation continues. This is A Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
16 degrees is mostly cloudy in Nairobi. 22 degrees the high today with chances of showers rather high for this afternoon. 16 degrees in Nyeri as well. Chance of thunderstorms later with highs of 22 and lows of 16. Nakuru is partly cloudy this morning. It'll go into rain showers though later. Highs of 23. In Eldoret at 14 degrees, we'll have clear skies this morning, but it'll cloud up later with scattered thunderstorms through most of the town. In Kisumu, it's raining. We said it would, and it already is coming down in sheets at 21 degrees. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 19. Mombasa was raining this morning. It's mostly cloudy now. The rain will come back though later with highs of 27 and lows of 24. It continues to come down in Malindi at 26 degrees this morning. Highs of 27 and lows of 25 will escalate to thunderstorms later on. 19 degrees in Kampala and raining this morning. It's likely to carry throughout the day. Highs of 24 and lows of 19. 25 degrees in Dar es Salaam this morning, highs of 29 and lows of 24 with rain showers through most of the afternoon. At 8 degrees in Johannesburg, it's going to be clear and sunny all day with highs of 21 and lows of 7. And for now in Lagos, light thunderstorms throughout the city and the state, highs of 31 and lows of 24, and the rain will continue through most parts of the day.
All right. A lot of things happening. Kenyans have arrived home after asking the government to facilitate their return home from India, from the UK, from China. What's happened after they got in here?
So this was on Friday. Some seamen who are from Marseille, France, moved to UK to make it to Kenya. So there are seamen that had been to work, and from Marseille, from the information that I gathered from them, from Marseille they had been tested, and they had been certified. They even shared the medical records from Marseille, from France. They had been in quarantine for 40 days because, well, as in it's a global pandemic. Not much is happening everywhere. So from Marseille they moved to London. From London, they traveled to Kenya because now after that, the government said, everyone coming in, you'll go into mandatory quarantine, which is expected for 14 days, fully covered by the government. So when they made it to JKIA, they filled in self-quarantine forms, which basically just declaring that, they will abide by this guidelines to self-quarantine at home. If I could just read part of what that form says. So it says, during the 14-day self-quarantine period, I shall strictly observe the following. Stay at home and avoid contact with others. 2, not to take public transportation, taxis or rideshare. If sharing a house with others while on quarantine, I shall contain myself in a separate wall-ventilated room away from the other members and use a separate bathroom and toilet. If you must share hygiene and toilet facilities, that is now in quotes, I shall ensure proper disinfection of these facilities after use, using regular household disinfectant or soap and water. The 4th one was not to allow visitors coming into my home, avoid sharing household items such as a toothbrush, utensils, and the rest, and wash these items thoroughly after use with disinfectant solution. Frequently disinfect touched shared surfaces that may be contaminated. I undertake to provide correct information to the Ministry of Health regarding my health status during the 14-day quarantine period. Immediately notify the Ministry of Health through toll-free number 719 and the other numbers there when I develop signs and symptoms of acute respiratory illness, that is fever, cough, or sore throat, or difficulty in breathing. So this was basically self-quarantine declaration for you to go home. But now what happened is...
This is what they filled.
This is what they filled
the
and
airport.
signed. Yes.
But they knew that this is quarantine at home.
Yes. Coronavirus self-quarantine declaration. This is the Ministry of Health document that you write your name, I, so-and-so, ID number this and this, having traveled from or
wherever.
through a COVID-19 affected area and having been advised by Ministry of Health, commit to undertake self-quarantine for 14 days. So you say your country of departure. So this was France. Stopovers in the 14 days. Obviously, it was London and then Nairobi, JKIA. So this is what they filled. But somehow they ended up at St. George's School, girls' school.
This is that, okay.
It sounds like Alice in Wonderland, and you find yourself in the enchanted forest, and you didn't know where you were going.
Everybody boarding the flight in London was told, you are going to quarantine at a government-mandated facility, but at the expense of government.
Yes.
Okay? You arrive at the JKIA, and the form that you're filling is talking about home.
Yes.
First,
yes.
disconnection number one. You're given, it's like this, before this, when guys were arriving and they were being given Ebola forms to fill about Ebola.
Yeah.
This is where the money has gone. Printing,
printing, yes, printing, yeah.
70 million.
And then this is the form you're given.
Yes.
Saying that you're going to quarantine yourself at home, you're not going to share a toilet, and then you're taken to
St. George's.
Let's
Yeah. So it is fine.
Let's go on.
So as
Let's
St.
just
George,
assume that somebody just
Drop the ball.
looked at this form and decided, see, quarantine.
quarantine. Yes.
Yes.
So they arrived on 4th. So they went to St. George's. So for me, I would not have any problem because all you need is quarantine.
Yeah.
I would not have any problem if you are in the facility, you are being taken care of the same way you would at home, and no one is asking you for money, because the Cabinet Secretary for Health stood in front of the public through the media and said quarantine from now henceforth will be covered by government.
Yep.
So when they arrived at St. George's, they were put obviously in the dormitories. And there were not just the 5 seamen, there were many other people in St. George's who are also on quarantine. So they say 5th, they gave us breakfast, lunch, and dinner. 6th, no breakfast, no lunch until someone from the ministry intervened. Then we were served dinner. Date 7, we were served all meals of the day. And now today, when we were talking to them on day 8th, which was on Friday, they had not been served all meals all day, because they had not paid or they were not going to pay for quarantine.
So how is this conversation happening? When they arrived on the 4th at night, because that's when they landed, they filled out a form that they're going to quarantine themselves at home, and then they are taken to their home at St. George's. When they arrived there, they are given, the first day they were given all meals.
All meals, yes.
Were they told at any point that you expect you to pay?
So from what I gathered from the Nairobi Metropolitan Services is that they had said they will pay the 2,000 per day.
Who had said they would pay?
The seamen.
All right.
Had said,
The passengers had said.
The passengers, yes.
We are going to pay.
We are going to pay for quarantine. But now, I think the CS announced this thing on 4th or 5th, thereabout.
By the time these guys were coming, the government had already said. Quarantine is going to be taken care of by the government.
So from this other side, they say these people, they had agreed to pay. Now they have changed their minds. They're not going to pay.
So that's where the contention was from the side of St. George's.
Yeah.
Okay.
So from the side of St. George's is they need money to.
We need to know who's paying for this service.
Yeah, so that they can provide the services, because somebody has to get that food from somewhere. Somebody has to prepare that food. So if there are no funds to make this available, then what are they going to offer you?
For avoidance of doubt, St. George's is not owned by George. It's a government facility. Right? Just, there could be some confusion somewhere here that George amekataa kutupatia chakula. This is a government facility.
Yes, it is a government facility.
That is coordinating the fight against COVID-19.
Yes.
The same government that announced that we are going to cater for all quarantine costs for everybody.
Yeah.
And now St. George's is not aware of all these things. They have been told that these people are going to pay. So first day they're given the full meal. Second day they're given lunch, breakfast and lunch, no dinner. A health officer comes and intervenes.
Second day, no food until dinner.
Okay.
Yeah. Then, so as at Sunday, yesterday, they were relocated to, was it yesterday or Saturday? They were relocated to KMTC, the 5 of them specifically, that they were troublesome.
Okay.
So only those 5 were relocated to KMTC.
How many people were in St. George's?
I don't know the total number of people that are in St. George's.
Were the others getting meals? Could
Yeah.
we say that the others were getting meals, but these 4 are not getting meals?
So from what they said is that they, the 5 of them, were not getting it, were being treated differently from the rest. But government says otherwise. But yeah.
What otherwise does this government say? I'm really trying to. It's like a puzzle for me now. I'm getting the pieces. I'm trying to put them now together. So now, what does government say?
Piece
which
1
is
has seamen travelers from Marseille, France.
right.
Piece 2 has George.
No, piece 2 has a form that they filled.
Okay.
They feel
Yes.
a JK.
Right. Piece 3 now is that they somehow arrived at St. George's. Okay. Piece 4 is that sometime during this discourse or whatever, they said they would pay for their stay during quarantine. Whether they knew about the government directive or not, that's a whole different story.
That's a whole
okay,
different
but they
story.
said they would pay. The understanding, which is now piece 5, around the country is that the government has made an announcement right about the same time that they're going to take care of for everybody, regardless. You in a government facility for quarantine, we will foot
No
the bill.
problem.
Okay?
No problem.
It's on
We
us.
are rich. We are a rich
Right?
country.
So I have 6 pieces. Maybe 6.5 pieces here is that you get full meals on one day, the next day you get one meal, the next day you get full meals, and then so they're kind of like in a start-stop when your car has a little bit of fuel, can take you over the bridge.
Yeah.
We're not quite sure if it's going. And then we hear that they now say, all right, these guys have said they're going to pay, they're not paying. So we need to be sure exactly what's going on. So since we're not sure, we're going to stop all the meals. Now,
The piece that
a
holds
hungry
all
man
these
is
things
an angry
together.
man.
The piece that holds all these things together. At the end of it all, they are moved from St. George's.
Wait,
So,
This is
hungry man is
an
an
angry man. So
man
they reached
did not
out.
get food. Man becomes angry.
Angry.
No food. So then we move you because you're making noise, right? Which is
Did they
what
did they break anything?
What other
Like,
reason did they
No.
break things? What did they
was there a
become?
fire?
None that I know of.
Did they beat anybody?
None that I know of.
They were
But-
moved.
Has there been a complaint like, they've roughed up the staff at St. George's,
None that I know of.
torn the mattress?
So somebody needed confirmation that these fellows were going to pay for this food or pay for this stay in order for them to continue. They did not get this information that they needed, and the next thing we are told about now is that the men became rowdy.
Kimeumana.
So
I
we
don't-
needed to move them.
The movement
KMTC.
I still don't get. The movement I still don't get.
Nowhere,
Let's
the
take a look
pieces
at
are
traffic. 28 minutes to 8 o'clock.
All right, give you right this morning. Unfortunately, a bus has killed a passenger on the road, and there's quite a crowd right there on that part of the Thika Superhighway, and it's building up. The bus, unfortunately, seems to have hit and run. In this case, killed and run. And that's causing traffic. Approach with caution. Still waiting for emergency services to come and take the body of this young man away. Unfortunately, that has happened this morning. On the southern bypass, there seems to be a little bit of a hold-up right after Ole Sereni. That will dissipate soon enough. Again, being advised to use the service lane on Thika Road right now, but you cannot use the main road because of the accident that we've seen that has taken place there today. All right. Apart from that, it looks okay in many directions around the city and indeed around the country. Remember that a lot of those connecting roads, because of the floods, have been washed away. So you need to be very careful when planning your journeys this morning, especially in towns outside of Nairobi. We're looking specifically at Kisumu. We're looking at Bungoma, Kakamega, Busia. You need to be extremely careful. Spice FM KE, let us know what you see and we'll keep you moving this Monday morning.
Okay, so now this is people are coming from France. So
Spice
use a
up
French
your
word.
life.
I know it's inappropriate in this particular case. but you're
Mature,
looking at all of
intelligent
this.
talk every
Not the
morning.
one talk.
Spice up yourself.
Il n'y a pas de
Il n'y a pas de précision.
dernier pièce.
Oh,
Mornings done right.
bad.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All together and what has really happened. Because in one case, look, it's clear. Announcement publicly. Government, we will take care of all costs.
Quarantine.
Whether you come, whether you are here, we'll take care of everything. So what is the situation right now? And we're asking ourselves, is it possible then that these gentlemen did they do something wrong? Did they speak in a manner unpalatable to the powers that be? Did something happen?
They are sailors. What kind of language do you expect from a sailor? What kind of language do you expect from a sailor? Yeah?
Well, I can imagine. I can imagine what happened, what was said or not said. But they still have a right to food and to be taken care of. This is what the government said.
The food they were given was strungi.
They took a picture, right?
Yeah,
And they shared.
strungi, boflo moja, and chapati.
So this is dinner, all right? Kula chapati, umeza na mkate.
And you've not had any food the whole day.
Government spokesman Colonel Cyrus Oguna is joining us now on the line. Good morning, Colonel.
Good morning. Boflo moja na chapati moja ni ya nani hiyo?
Na turungi ya kuteremsha.
Neto chai ya rangi bwana.
Chai ya rangi sio?
Ndio.
Good morning, Colonel. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Morning to you. And thanks for inviting me to the show.
Asante sana. Now,
Thank
you.
you.
know what we're discussing? We're talking about the plight of Kenyans who've come back to the country from various countries where they were holding. This
Yes.
A group of Kenyans came from France via London to JKIA.
Yes.
They filled out a form that was mandating them to go and quarantine themselves at home.
Yes.
But their communication and their understanding from the very beginning was that they were going to be quarantined at a government facility. And so they were taken to St. George's.
Yes.
From St. George's, what they have directly told Dr. Mercy Korir is
Yes.
on the first day they received a full meal. The second day they received lunch, breakfast and lunch. They did not get dinner until intervention of a health worker.
Yes.
The third day they got full meal. The fourth day they did not get anything until well past 8 p.m. And that's when they were getting the boflo, chapati, na chai ya rangi.
Okay.
And then after that they were moved from St. George's. They were taken to KMTC.
Yes.
What's the story here, Colonel?
These are the 7 gentlemen
Yes.
who came from France, yeah?
Yes.
Yes, they were moved to St. George's because they were actually unruly. Remember, they are not the only people at the quarantine at St. George's. And the majority of the people there want their quiet, want their peace. And these 7 young men were really very unruly, making a lot of noise for everyone. And that actually is why they were transferred. Yes.
What is unruly? Just describe what were they
Unruly
doing?
just being chaotic. You know, quarantine has got protocols that must be followed.
Okay.
And even if you're in quarantine, of course, you must obey the social distancing requirement.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course, there's also the need that you must also be cognizant of the fact that you're not the only one who is there. There are others. So there are those who do not want a lot of noise. So these young men really did not want to observe that. And to that extent, therefore, they had to be moved to KMTC.
Was this the case in all the 4 days that they were there? Like from day
You
one,
know,
they were just noisy. What is it that we're doing by being unruly? Was it noise? Was it?
I think there's a sense of entitlement,
Okay.
and this is something that we must be able to, as a country, to address.
Mm.
You know, if you're coming back to your country, the country has got certain procedures, protocols, certain rules and regulations that you must be able to abide by. If you're coming from France, that's a different society altogether. When you're coming into your country, you're coming into a new society again, and a society that has got its own protocols. But they're finding it a bit hard to relate with the protocol that we have. And that really is why they had to initially be given time to try and adjust and live by the protocol that are here. So they found it a bit hard to adjust, and initially, they had to be cautioned again and again, and they were unwilling to do that. And the process also, being unfair to the other, who are in quarantine at St. George's.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. So one pertinent question here is, their costs, are they being covered by the government, Colonel Oguna?
The cost of quarantine, okay, let me put it this other way first. There are two sets of quarantine facilities. The first set is that you're given the option. Do you want to go to a hotel or do you want to go to a government-owned facility? Now, if you opt to go to a hotel, certainly you meet the cost of quarantine. Now, if you opt to go to a government-owned facility, then certainly the government will defray the cost of being in a quarantine facility. That is the standard, and that is the position, and that is what is being, right now exercised in all these quarantine facilities.
Okay.
Yes.
So when this gentleman from France, when they were taken to St. George's, this is a government facility.
It is, indeed.
So all their bills are to be footed by the government.
And that is the position. It hasn't changed.
Their complaint
Yes.
was that they
And not-
were,
and not
initially
just-
they're also being told that
this
they
way.
need to pay 4,000
Let me
shillings.
put it this way, Eric.
Yeah.
Is that it's not just St. George's. There is also a quarantine facility at a cooperative bank, and Dr. Mercy Korir is familiar with this. And even those that have been taken there are being, are taken care of at the government expense. And that is the position. And to the best of my knowledge, this morning, that has not changed.
Colonel, going back
Yes.
to the declaration forms, they signed declaration form to self-quarantine, and the rules therein are for home-based quarantine, but they end up in a government facility. Why is there a disconnect?
Dr. Mercy, the doctor, of course, you're aware. And I'm saying this specifically addressing you because I know you are familiar with this. The forms are standard. And there are those who are coming from from India that had been, locked down there because of when we suspended, flight, not just us, but also other, countries, including India itself. So this massive flight, which, are brought in this 165 from 230 from India, as they were filling the forms. They were filling the forms on the basis that they will be able to quarantine at home for as long as there is a doctor and a caregiver who will be able to take care of them.
Okay.
The forms are standard, and the forms were designed for that group of people. So the others who are filling those forms is basically, forms that had been prepared for those who are coming from India, having been locked there, yet they had gone for medical treatment. Yes, so they were allowed to go home because some of them already had got other underlying conditions.
Yeah.
That would not allow them to be, quarantined in normal government facility.
But my question is, why not have forms that address the specific issue? So if you're going for home quarantine, you fill such particular forms. If you're going for home-based, for government-mandated quarantine, you fill forms to that effect. Why
If you're
not
going to a
have
hotel as well,
you
you
fill
fill
a
one
form to
where you
that
also
effect?
commit that you're going to foot your bill.
But you see, Dr. Mercy, these people are rational people. And being rational simply means that they are explained to. The forms may have been talking about this, but they were explained to by a human being. And they understood the explanation. So when they're turning around and the forms are saying this, but you're being told this, yet they explained to that, yes, the forms are filling or is designed for this group of people, but nonetheless, you will be handled this way. And they understood that, yes.
Actually, to be fair to them, Colonel, is that they have not raised an issue with the form that they filled. They didn't have an issue. We are the ones who are raising that issue, wondering why is it
And
so
you
hard to
have
just have the three
You
forms?
don't have to. You don't have to have an issue with that, honestly. Many times, like initially at the beginning of this corona campaign, they were complaining that they were filling Ebola forms
Yes.
Yes.
instead of virus. And I remember that one was aired many times. But honestly, a form is a form for as long as the information that is there serves the purpose. All right? So really, these forms, even though are designed for the team that was coming from India, but the others were actually explained to. So the issue should not actually be what the forms are saying.
Okay.
The issue is it when they got into the country, how are they taken care of?
Okay.
Yes.
And so, Colonel, now, how they were taken care of is being unruly and making noise something that should cause the facility or people not to offer food or not to offer basic care for them, and food here being that basic.
What is the protocol actually for handling? So if you have somebody who's unruly or somebody who is not following the laid down rules, what does the protocol say? What should happen?
And that's what you're saying, that the protocol says that if there's anybody who is unruly, then they must be made not to be unruly anymore. So they were removed there because we had people there who really want to observe this quarantine protocol as had been put down by the Ministry of Health and the government as a whole. And the people who are there really want just to do their 14 days without any disturbance.
Yeah.
And then they go home.
Okay.
And that's completely understandable.
These 7 young men from France who feel that they're entitled to everything, that they wanted a 5-course meal, it can't happen.
Is this what they were requesting, a 5-course meal at the government quarantine?
Well, not exactly a 5-course meal, but they wanted some entitlement to want this, want that, it couldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying, honestly, and I did take this up with my friend Dr. Masi yesterday and explained to her that we are here for you. We are supposed to help you verify information before it goes out, because that's all right. And I'm glad that you're actually calling me this morning so that this issue can be clarified. And I think that is what should be responsible journalism.
When they were moved from St. George's to Kenya Medical Training College, what changed?
Yes, that's a good question. You understand? Because of the level of the size of the space there, they have all this space to themselves. Unlike St. George's, where most other people have been taken there. So then the size of space at KMTC is sufficient for them. If they want to riot the whole night, let them go riot the whole night within the facility, but not allowed to move out. At their own risk, of course. If one of them is infected, of course, they'll be there and until at such a time when they'll be able to test negative.
So moving them to KMTC sounds a bit punitive, kind of like you
made
a mistake here.
But again, we must also be cognizant that other people want their food. Let's not focus on one aspect and forget the other as well. There are people who have been there for a while. They just want to do their 14 days and go home. Some 7 young men comes on, and they want to be able to, destabilize the peace that these people have been enjoying. I think that is not fair to the other group. So even as we focus on the 7 young men, let's not forget that there's also another group that we don't seem to be talking much about.
I think it's important to focus on the 7 young men, Canon, and I'll tell you why. If indeed they are unruly, if they're not observing the quarantine, it's going to affect everybody else in that facility.
And exactly why they
and therefore the management of this the people or this 7 or anybody else who becomes unruly is also very important for the protection of everybody else. So if you move them from one facility and you take them to another,
but remember, Eric.
Yeah,
your health begins with you.
True.
You understand? Before it moves to the next level where the government now will intervene, it is you. All right. These are the people who are there before are concerned about their health. They are obeying the protocols, right? And then another team comes in who don't seem to mind about the protocols. Then the government must step in. And that's exactly what the government did. Yes.
One of them has actually called in. Do you mind if we put him on air?
I don't mind.
And you talk to him. So this is Frank Jones-Bolly, who is now at KMTC quarantine. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning.
So you're one of the seamen who came in from Marseille through London and into JKIA.
Yes.
And you've been hearing, I guess you've heard the conversation with the government spokesman, Colonel Cyrus Oguna.
Yes, clearly.
You've now been moved to KMTC.
Yes.
Why were you moved to KMTC?
The reason was not given to us immediately because it was evening around 6. So we had gone to collect our food as usual. So then the matron comes in with her forms saying that you're supposed to vacate the facility and be taken to a better facility.
Yep.
So we asked her which facility. She was hesitative at first. Then she told us it's the KFTC. So we told her we have to confirm with our agency and get to know, the cause of us being transferred from St. George's, because we had aired our views. It's not that we were breaking the protocol. We, the only ones who were staying indoors all day, all night, with the food being provided for us, brought inside, we take our food. Even the other guys who were outside there were always complaining when they saw us out, when we had gone to do the medical checkup. They always said, these guys always want to stay indoors. They just keep indoors because they are from Europe. That was the concept. So I'm just wondering today, being told that we were breaking the protocol. I believe we were the most people who kept the rule of, keeping indoors, because it's so many people. You could see these other guys being seated outside there, just, not even minding about the social distance. Okay, but let's forget about that. So it so happened we had to make some calls from some other guys from the Ministry of Health, and they said St. George's is a better institution, so you just cooperate and move to St. George's.
KMTC.
So, anyway, to KMTC, sorry, yeah.
How many are you? How many were moved?
We are a group of 5, not 7, like the spokesman is saying about 7.
Okay.
We were just 5, yes.
So the government spokesman, you've heard him, he's saying the report that they have is that, one, you guys are unruly, you are noisy, and that the other people who are staying at St. George's are the ones who complained that you were making too much noise for them, that you are unruly.
No, that's a very big lie. I can say it without fear without fear that we were the very cool guys, no noise, because none of us has a speaker or anything. We just use our laptops and some phones for some music, and that's all. We just keep ourselves between that space that we were allocated for. Just the 5 of us, nobody else.
Eric, I've heard the young man.
Yes.
Yeah, but I would also request that if you're going to talk to one person, then talk to another person as well. Have you gotten to talk to somebody from St. George's?
We're looking to speak to somebody else from St. George's.
Yeah, so you see, I would not have expected to hear anything different, and I'm really not surprised, because there's no reason why the government would actually want to punish anyone. Why? For what benefit? Yet, they are there at government expense. Yeah, so really, I'm thinking that, what is good for the goose should also be good for the gender. So I'm suggesting that even as you talk to somebody from KMTC, it may just help to get somebody from St. George's.
One of the complaining parties. But now that you have Frank on the line, Colonel, what advice would you give him in terms of how he should behave himself for the next 10 days?
Yeah, really, the government is doing this to protect Frank and his team, but also to protect the rest of the society. And there is nothing the government is doing to punish anyone. It would not help by punishing any Kenyan. And all these facilities are being run at government expense, essentially, to protect Frank and the rest of us. So all I can ask the young man and his team is to behave, cooperate, because 14 days is not a lot of time, really. Just 2 weeks, within which, if they all test negative, they'll all be let to go and reunite with their families. So all they can do just to be mindful that this is done for the benefit and in the best interest of the country.
Frank, you hear that?
Yes, I hear, of which is what we are observing. We just keep trying to keep our distance. Like here now in KMTC, everybody is allocated his cabin, so we just keep indoors. We just go out during mealtime, get our food, and come back to our cabin. That's all we do all day long, all night long.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Frank, for joining us this morning.
Okay, thank you so much.
And Colonel Cyrus Aguna, the government spokesman. Before we let you go, Colonel, there's also the other group that arrived from Guangzhou, China. And we saw footage as well on social media that they were taken to Cooperative College in Karen, but it took a long time for them to get admitted, with a whole back and forth on who's going to pay the bill.
A long time, Eric, is very relative. How long is a long time?
They arrived, we know for sure that the flight arrived at JKIA well past 1 a.m. and the video footage was being recorded in daylight. So clearly, it's between 1 a.m. and daylight.
But you see, well, I don't have the data to what time they arrived. I know they arrived, before sunrise.
Yep.
Yeah, but all I can tell you now, honestly, is that the government directive is that wherever they are taken, those who are coming in, for as long as it's the government-owned facility,
Yep.
then everything will be defrayed by the government.
Okay.
That is the position. And the issue that I'm aware of, the same thing that I did discuss with Dr. Mas in the evening yesterday. And it was basically an issue that came up because of misinterpretation of communication.
Mm-hmm.
And that has since been sorted out. But I must also say this. Whenever anything goes out in the social media, it's something that is broadcast the entire world.
Yes.
And I don't think as a country and as really, people of this country that we should be too quick to put things out there without necessarily confirming with the government. Because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do really is to make the whole government look bad. But I tell you this as well, that there are countries that are worse off than we are. But you don't hear things coming from there. So the best thing I think we need to do is that before we release anything to the social media platforms for the whole world to see and read, it may just help to call and verify, and then it may give you another dimension that would help in terms of how you're going to couch your story.
But
and I think that is what is good.
Let me ask. Between the CS making the announcement, people arriving, where do you think the problem is in government in making this seamless from people arriving to going into quarantine and everything moving in smoothly as is down on paper? Why is there a disconnect then?
Mercy Career, a government is a concept. And a concept that is given life by people who are in government. And because of sometimes we have got our own challenges as individuals a few times, the same challenges may be reflected in government. So the communication was made, and it did not get to them in good time.
Yep.
Right? But it was nonetheless a decision that had been made long before even that communication was released.
You can imagine.
So all I'm trying to say is that we as human beings are not perfect. And those imperfections are also, reflected in government. So let's not look at government as a well-oiled machinery, like a car engine that is very new. You understand? So there will be those challenges.
I hear you personally. I hear you, and you're our friend on this show, and you're a good man. But I've got to give you my feedback directly at this point. That there are some things that I expect my government to be able to do smoothly and efficiently. For instance, the issue of printing 3 forms, that should not even be a thing to discuss, Colonel. It should be very clear that if you're arriving from Gwangju, then it's very clear from you, from the moment you are boarding that flight, that you are going into a government-mandated facility, and this is a form that you're going to fill. And if you arrive from Gwangju and you want to go to a hotel, it's communicated to you clearly that you want to go to a hotel, you shall pay. You want to go to a government facility, you shall not pay.
Fine, Eric. Why don't you also look at the government's own wisdom to be able, and its generosity to be able to provide for these Kenyans? We're only looking at forms not having been there in time, not having been printed properly. Yet, you and me, who are the taxpayers,
because it's a detail. The devil is in the detail, Colonel. The devil is in the detail.
But also give the government
the previous quarantine issues were going haywire because of that breakdown in communication.
They have been sorted out.
Yes.
And I don't think it serves any purpose to go back where we came from. We are actually we are improving day by day, and basically I think that is how things should work. Initially, even an airplane, before it takes off, it suffers a bit.
And
but once it's taken off, it rises and the ride becomes so smooth.
It's tested before passengers are allowed to board. Before a flight goes commercial, let's say Boeing 787, they are coming up with they will test it before they actually take it commercial. Basically,
but any flight, Eric, suffers when it is taking off. You don't even know whether the aircraft will take off at all.
Yep.
it will probably even outrun the runway. You see, and that is with any kind of, a process. So it is improved with time. So the aeroplane just takes off and then it stabilizes. Then everything smoothens out.
I hear you,
The
Colonel.
same case would apply to all of us. So I'm saying this, that let's not focus on what might not have gone so well. It may also suffice to also look at what really has gone well.
True.
All right.
And our job here, Colonel, is to speak about both cases. So when we talk about
what has gone well.
Oh, we talk about what has gone well very well all the time.
Honestly, you and me are paying for these people. I mean, for our brothers and sisters at the quarantine facility.
Yes, they're also paying for themselves. They're taxpayers.
You're not even patting yourself for that. You're paying it.
It's true. Which is why I'd like my taxes to actually ensure that everybody who's enjoying the benefit of my tax is enjoying the benefit of my tax in the best way. When they arrive at JKIA and they go to cooperative college, they should be checked in just like they arrived at a hotel. Not stay there, not wait for communication breakdown between Afia House and cooperative college. That is what leaves a bad taste in the mouth. And you're wondering why. Such things should be simple.
It should not leave a bad taste.
Colonel Luguna, you should be dealing with the bigger things of how to fight COVID, not the small things of how people are checked into a quarantine facility.
It is those small things that add on to bigger things about fighting.
Well, exactly, Colonel. But I'd like to ask, is it possible? I mean, just the way that we've seen things, Colonel, is it possible for some of these processes to be seamless from where you sit and say, these are not the things that we should be dealing with at this point? Just seamless operations, especially when we have so many people coming in and out of this particular system. Is it possible for the operation to be seamless?
And if you remember what the CS Health did mention, and I wish that some of these things can play them back. He did mention that, yes, we had some challenges, but we're improving with time. He was able to acknowledge. And what he was saying basically is that human existence is not perfect. There are imperfections. But sometimes, once you identify the imperfections, we improve on them and we move forward. And that's exactly what you were saying when you talk about, issues with, logistics at quarantine facilities. And honestly, I think we've done extremely well where we are today compared to where we started from.
We'll be the judge of that, Colonel. We will be the judge of that.
Yes. Fine, no problem.
Asante sana, Colonel Cyrus Aguirre, for speaking to us.
Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Colonel.
Anytime.
Usikunywe chai na mandazi leo.
Chai ya rangi.
Chai ya rangi.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.
It's 8:01. Let's take a look at traffic.
All right, the accident that took place around Githurai still taking center stage on Thika Road this morning. Unfortunately, that has not been cleared away and more people are crowding. I think at this point we need to try and see if we can give the dead some respect and move away from that. In this time, though, everybody being asked to use the service lane from Kahawa, Sukari towards town and avoid the main highway because of what we see right now. All right, coming off Mombasa Road from around Cabanas until General Motors, a little bit of a hold up, but you should be fine there after getting towards Bellevue and then to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. All right, around the city, it's looking good. We don't have much issues in terms of traffic this Monday morning. We'll see what it looks like later on in the day. And around Kenya as well, in major cities, traffic looks pretty good. So hang on. Tell us what you see. If you see something out of the ordinary, we'll make sure everybody else knows. Spice FMKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu
There are many
Oko,
good things that
Nigerian
our government is doing.
Yeah.
Including communicating to us, like Colonel Cyrus Aguna deciding, look, I am seeing this information and I'd like to weigh in and jump into this conversation. That's a good thing, to
Clear
have a
the
government
air.
spokesman that comes out to speak to the people. But also, let's also not forget, when you arrive and a flight is known, there's going to be a flight on this day and it'll arrive at JKI at this time, and these people, cooperative college is going to handle this number, this other facility is going to handle this number. You should have somebody waiting for them when they arrive at cooperative college and check them in.
Exactly.
The whole conversation of back and forth, or they had not been told. I think these are the things that I was telling Colonel Oguna that really we should be dealing with bigger things, like, we don't have enough swabs because the market, we're not
those
able
dynamics.
we are not able to buy test kits because we had ordered here, and then these guys were played by that company. We should be dealing with such big issues, not small thing like checking into a quarantine facility, or the kind of meal that you're getting, or how you should behave, and who communicates with you and tells you, look, you guys, this is wrong, what you're doing is wrong. I mean,
And it's these smaller issues. If you cannot sort out your small issues, what about the big ones? If we are focusing as a fourth estate on small issues about people getting meals in quarantine, people being moved because they're unruly, if those are our stories, what time do we get to really focus on the big issues? Like, for me, the government has said we'll do 250,000 tests by June. Now we are 31,000. For me, that is where the story is.
20 days to go.
Yeah. What's happening?
Until June.
So those are the stories we should be talking about, not, chaya strungi, boflo, na chapati. No. We should be talking about bigger issues.
Chapati baridi.
And by the time the CS comes out and say we will foot quarantine costs, because footing people covering their own quarantine costs was hampering the fight against COVID because people are not coming out. By the time that decision was arrived at, I would have expected that all these other pieces have been put together, as you said, and it is now seamless. Now that is behind us, now we are moving on to the other thing to make sure as many people as possible come out and get tested.
Unfortunately, and that's the thing, because if we want to look at this, we started out by talking about pieces to a puzzle. And it's the little pieces that make the big picture at the end of the day. If you want to see how all of this is coming together, whether you're going to have a piece missing, or it's lopsided here, or the picture on this one isn't making sense, or it's backwards, the little pieces are going to tell you what the big picture is. Yeah. And if you're not able to do little things well, it's indicative of how you're going to do big things. And it's not just government, it's anybody. It's an individual, it's an organization. If you can't get the nitty-gritty in place, then you're also showing that the big things then, and you want to look, you can go across religion. To him, much is given, much is required. Things like that. The world is replete with examples about this. And so I think, we may look at it as just a form. We may look at it as just a meal, just a little bit of communication. But at the end of the day, all of this is made up of these small
You understand what the form is implying. And whether it says home or you understand, it's about quarantine for COVID. So whether it says go home, don't use a toilet, and ensure that nobody else serves
you get it, right?
But you know what we
so
what
why
we
are you
mean.
making noise?
And I'm looking at it like this: if I'm the one there and I want to complain and take the government to court, it's very clear. You said I failed to go home.
I signed to go home,
but you detained me somewhere else. It can be detention. I mean, because it's a government form that says I should go home. So if I didn't go home, what happened?
You signed that you're not going to share a bathroom. And here you are in a dormitory, sharing a bathroom.
So I think we should not lose focus of those small details. Actually, government should not lose focus of those small details, because those small details actually mean a lot. Because at the end of the day, it is people that are affected.
Yeah.
These people that are affected, if anything goes wrong, like we saw in the first set of quarantine, your numbers go up. And when your numbers go up, it means your fight against
go
COVID
haywire.
is not going so well after all.
Anyway, let's turn to positive news. All right. The war against corruption had some positive news, a major milestone from the Supreme Court the other day. And this is with regards to how the decision, the new dawn of fight against corruption in Kenya. The overall implication of a development at the Supreme Court is that any asset held by a public officer and is disproportionate to their known legitimate sources of income will be deemed to have been derived from corruption. Either prove that you acquired it lawfully or you lose it. That's a new line anyway. If you can't prove that you acquired this lawfully,
It's out.
it's out.
It's
It's
out.
taken. We don't have to go back and forth. This stems from a case that had lasted for many years. 2008, in August 2008, July 2008 rather, is when the then EACC, Ethics and Anti-Corruption, at that point it was actually the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, KACC. It had gone to court and issued Stanley Mombo Amuti, the finance manager at the National Water Conservation and Pipeline Corporation, with a notice to furnish a statement of his property. Okay. Upon investigations, the commission established that Stanley Mombo Amuti acquired assets estimated to be worth tens of millions. The assets were disproportionate to his known source of income, and the case was heard and concluded in the High Court, where Justice Kalpana Rawal, on her own motion, introduced issues relating to the constitutionality of Section 55 of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act. However, on appeal, the EACC, the Court of Appeal, reversed that decision by Justice Rawal and referred the matter back to the High Court to be heard afresh. In the retrial proceedings, the High Court agreed with the EACC that Amuti was indeed in possession of unexplained assets and accordingly ordered that the unexplained assets worth 41 million shillings be forfeited to the government. So Mr. Amuti was told, 41 million shillings, we basically cannot explain how, as a finance manager with a government agency earning less than 200,000 shillings a month, you have acquired 41 million shillings. He was told this is what will happen. So Mr. Amuti went and appealed in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, look, come on, these are matters that what is before the Court of Appeal stands. So this is basically a win for the EACC. However, it also goes to what when the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission CEO was here, Twalib, he told us these cases take long, right? It's a back and forth. It takes long. We're talking about 12 years.
Right. On one case.
On one case. And now they've just been told, all right, you can go ahead and find ways of requiring these assets.
And this is a way now. Because it seems to me that it has been said by the courts that no questions asked. We're not even saying, oh, come on. No, if you're not able to, the opportunity will be granted to you to prove. And I think we can get more clarification on that. The opportunity will be granted to you to prove. And if you're not able to do so, legally prove this, then it will be taken away.
Yep.
Now, other issues come into play here, like things like declaration of wealth, etc., etc. Can you just ask anybody within the Republic of Kenya what then is going to happen? We talk about this being a major milestone. Does that mean that a lot of the money then lost to corruption can then be regained by the Republic because of the fact that individuals, corporations, companies will not then be able to explain the wealth that they have then gotten over a short period of time, long period of time, whatever.
Yep.
If that happens, it goes. So I think clarification on that is sought, but it does seem to be something major because many individuals over time have refused to declare their wealth, have refused to say where their sources of wealth are, and now we see this landmark ruling. Does this mean that we're going to see a pickup? We're going to see a shortening of these cases? Are we going to see then more money going back into public coffers?
Or does it even give powers to the EACC just because I cannot explain, I cannot prove how I acquired this, then you can come and take it. Right. On the other hand, because that can also be used to finish people, where you can't really explain how you acquired this wealth. So the government is
they've
taking
stated there quite clearly, you prove it or you lose it.
Or you lose it.
Prove it or lose it. For me, it's a start.
Yep.
I mean, if it's legal, it wouldn't be so hard to prove. I mean, you can provide all your paperwork, everything to say A, B, C, and D. But if you're having a hard time proving it, then there's an issue in there that needs to be looked at. So it's a win for people that are genuine, because then you'll not find yourself on the wrong or rather on somebody trying to take advantage of now this case and, settle scores. It's a win for somebody who's genuine.
Yeah.
But now those that are not genuine, then it's a win for Mwananchi, because it means if you cannot prove it, we are able to now really go after you. But now my question would be, after you've regained that wealth, those assets, what next?
What next? Where does it go after that?
Where does it go after that? Because you run the risk of it still going to another pocket anyway, which is zero sum at the end of the day. So for me, fine, the ruling and everything is here, but we need to see everything end to end. What happens after we've regained it?
So there's an asset recovery agency. There are many avenues of recovering these assets. So what happens after they've recovered?
Exactly.
Where do they take it?
Exactly.
And it's important to know that. So basically, this story was even covered in the Standard the other day. It says, on the 12th of May 2008, the court heard that Amuti went to an ATM 15 times, depositing into his account 100,000 shillings on each visit. He deposited 1.5 million shillings in a day. The following day, he deposited 2 million shillings. According to the EACC, it was not wrong for the man to have so much on him, but failing to explain how he got it raised red flags on how he sourced it. The court said that the anti-graft body investigators found Amuti with 300,000 shillings in cash. Upon raiding his house, they found 3.9 million shillings in cash. So they were saying, all right, so we've raided your home, we found all this money. Explain, boss. Sawa. Okay, you've done business. So he's explaining how he had done business with other people. He had been paid for a house in Komarok that he had sold. He basically was trying to explain, but EACC was adamant and saying, look, this doesn't
add up here and there.
And the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal agreed with the EACC and said, there are very many gaps in this story of yours. Let's speak to somebody from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission shortly after this. First of all, take a look at weather. And then we come in and speak to Assistant Director of EACC, Philip Kagushia, who will shed some more light on what exactly happened in this particular case and going forward. Those questions that we are asking. When you take that wealth, when you repossess the wealth, what happens next? Good morning. It's 16 minutes after 8.
All right, we're looking at partly cloudy conditions only in Nairobi this morning. The chance of rain is still quite high. We'll probably see the clouds come over in the afternoon. Highs of 22 and lows of 15. In Nyeri at 17 degrees, it's mostly cloudy this morning. It'll come into rains in the afternoon with highs of 22 and lows of 16. It's going to be a wet afternoon in Nakuru today, currently at 16 degrees. We'll see highs of 23. Eldoret this afternoon will have thunderstorms with highs of 22. Currently mostly cloudy at 15 degrees. Kisumu was rainy this morning. It's mostly cloudy now. We'll go back into the rains with highs of 25. And the forecast is thunderstorms for most parts of the afternoon well into the evening. It's still raining in Mombasa at 25 degrees. It'll be the situation throughout the day with highs of 27 and lows of 24. Same goes for Malindi at 26 degrees, and we'll see this through the day with highs of 28 and lows of 25. Taking a look then into Kampala, where the rain has been coming down steadily since morning. It's highs of 24 and lows of 20. And it's likely to see the rain through into the night. Dar es Salaam at 25 degrees is mostly cloudy right now. We'll see light rains later on with highs of 29 and lows of 24. Taking a look then down south into Johannesburg, where it's mostly sunny at 9 degrees. Clear skies and sunny conditions throughout the day with highs of 22 and lows of 7. And finally for now in Lagos, light thunderstorms and rain throughout the day today. This is what is forecasted. At 26 degrees, we'll see highs of 31 and lows of 24.
landmark win for the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and indeed for the war against corruption at the Supreme Court, when the Supreme Court judges basically just agreed with the EACC that, if you can't explain it,
Can't prove it,
you lose it. Now, let's speak to an assistant director at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission who was involved very much in this case from the very beginning. Philip Kagushia, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for speaking to us this morning, and welcome to the Situation Room.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Philip, first of all, a good win at the Supreme Court. Just give us the context of this briefly.
Yeah, it's a great win. The context of this case is simply a public officer, in this case Mr. Amuti, who was a finance manager at the National Water Corporation and Pipeline Corporation. And in 10 months, he made cumulative deposits in excess of 140 million. Cumulative withdrawals in excess of 85 million. And according to the investigators, there was a net acquisition of assets of about 55 million. That's the difference between the 140 and the 85. So basically, that's what we initially were going after. Yes.
And when you took the case to court, initially Justice Kalpana Rawal raised issues with the sections of the law that you were quoting.
Yes, Section 55. That's right.
Yeah, and then you took the case now to appeal.
Yes.
And this is where the Court of Appeal agreed with you.
Yes, because the issue that was introduced by Lady Justice Rawal, who was later our Deputy Chief Justice, was that she felt that when the burden of proof shifts to the defendant, the standard appears to be higher than that for EACC. And it appeared as if the law, the way it was enacted, may be a little unfair on Amuti. And she was of the opinion that perhaps Parliament should look at it again.
Right.
Of course, we disagreed and we went to the Court of Appeal. And the Justice of Appeal said, you know what, it's normal for the burden of proof to shift. Especially because only Amuti would have the information about how he acquired those assets. Yes, and that's why it was sent back to the High Court to be heard afresh. Yes.
Okay. It's clear that this was a landmark win, Philip, because over time there has been so much in terms of the prosecution, in terms of the return of monies that could not be proved. And looking at this case and the length of time that it took, what does this essentially mean going forward now for cases that the EACC may have had their eye on for a while, or for cases that might crop up in the future? What exactly does this mean in terms of then what the EACC would be able to do?
All right. Well, what I would like perhaps to remind everyone is that the mandate of the EACC is both to prevent and combat corruption. When you take away the money, the only reason people steal is they steal to make money.
Right.
When you take away this money, it is a disincentive. Because these guys, what they do is they do this analysis of the risk versus the reward. So I figure that, okay, what are the chances of being caught? But if I've stolen, say, $1 million, 100 million, I can live with that risk. Also, with regard to the question you mentioned, the issue of prosecution. Again, somebody could go to court, and because the threshold for evidence is very high, they could actually get acquitted. And he'd still have the 100 billion stashed away somewhere.
Right.
Worst case scenario, even if he went to jail, he could sit there for 2-3 years and have his 100 billion sitting somewhere waiting
for him to come out.
Exactly. But now when we go in and take away the money, the incentive for these people to steal, a lot of people will think twice before they engage in corruption.
Right.
But the other side of it is this. We are putting back the money to where it is supposed to be. We need this money for our own services. We need to build schools, build roads, equip hospitals. So we're bringing the money back. So that is the import of this kind of decision.
So basically, when you're required now to be the one, what I'm hearing now is EACC comes to me, I'm a public officer, and
Yes.
and you say, Eric, you hold 100 million shillings in cash and assets, and we'd like you to prove how you acquired this.
Yes.
So you're basically telling me that it's for me to prove how I acquired this wealth, and if I cannot, if I stammer just a little bit, you take it.
In fact, the process is a little bit more elaborate. We even write to you before,
Okay.
and we say we have traced everything that you have, and we believe it is disproportionate to your known legitimate sources.
Mhm.
And that's very key to remember. The sources have to be known, like your salary, Eric,
Mhm.
and they have to be legitimate. So you can't tell me you're selling crack cocaine,
Yep.
and that's how you made the money.
Right. as a reason.
I run a logistics company.
Okay, and it's all, and by the way, many Kenyans have many assets. Some people inherit.
Yep.
We even have the unusual cases of sport pesa.
Yep.
Yeah.
A guy will go into a casino, make a few million. It happens. So it should not be difficult for somebody to explain legitimate income.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's only after that, when you look at your explanation and it is not satisfactory, that is when we start talking about going to court.
Okay.
Yes.
Wealth declaration has been an issue for many individuals over time. When we talk about lifestyle audits and things like this in the country, would this ruling then impact on individuals for whom have not previously then been able to declare their wealth?
Okay. The first thing I'd like to mention, I don't know if you're all aware, there is a lifestyle audit bill that is being looked at right now.
Yes.
And we are hoping that one goes through because it will make our job much easier.
How different is it from what we currently have?
Right now, the only thing we have is the declaration of income, assets, and liabilities,
Yep.
which is you, Eric Latif, declaring to me what you own.
Yep.
But I do not always have the opportunity to come and verify.
Okay.
And perhaps if we had done that before, we would even be able to narrow down the sort of people who appear to have been engaged in corruption.
Mm-hmm.
So now, with the wealth declaration, as Ndu asked, there is no criminal issue arising from failing to declare. And that's perhaps one of the things which we should also introduce.
Okay.
Why is a public officer not declaring every 2 years?
Right.
But in terms of this case, this landmark ruling, if you declare you only made 1 million in 2020, and I find out that you have 100 million in the same time, how are you going to explain the difference?
Right. And with the new bill that's in Parliament, how is it going to change the playing field now?
Well, one of the things we are hoping to be is a bit more proactive. As it is, this regime for wealth declaration is not expressly under the mandate of the EACC.
Okay.
But as you've noticed, the government is working with a multi-agency approach.
Yeah.
So that is where we are hoping to go. We're hoping to be able to work together, be a bit more proactive, be able to say, okay, these are the people who have given us their declarations. Are we able to audit? Because you will never hear anybody declaring more than they have. You get what I mean?
Right.
Yes. In the majority of cases, people will be under-declaring.
People under-declare.
And especially if you're stashing 4 million in your house like a muti, you're not likely to say you have 4 million under the mattress.
Of course not.
Yes, and that's the importance because in this case, that was one of the issues.
Okay. What are the chances, I don't know whether to call it chances or risk, of this new, you prove it or you lose it, affecting the smaller fish, quote unquote, more than the big fish? Where the bigger, because if you look at it in any corporation, association, or in any organization, you'll find that the people down here who do the dirty work are likely to be the ones that will be nabbed. Then the ones above who benefit from this activities go scot-free. So what are the chances that this will apply equally across board, as opposed to, the smaller fish carrying the yoke for everyone else?
Well, perhaps I can start by saying that there is no big fish or small fish. In the end, it is all corruption. And if you look at a case like Amuti, he wasn't a small fish. He was a finance controller.
Yeah.
And as you've seen from the judgment, the court said he needs to forfeit 41 million. Which small fish in Kenya has 41 million worth of unexplained assets? And I would just like to point out the kind of cases we've done recently are not involving small people. There's one in Mombasa, the former MD Kenya Ports Authority, and that was 74 million again. There is no small fish there.
Right.
Yeah.
We have one which has just left the High Court and gone to the Court of Appeal, involving the Nairobi City County Finance Manager.
Yeah.
That's 317 million. There's no small fish there.
Right.
The land commission.
Yeah. So we had the lady who is the valuer for the National Lands Commission. We found $170,000 in her house.
Yep.
And an additional 1 million. That's not a small fish. And we had an accountant from the Ministry of Interior, and the judgment was for 112 million.
There was a junior officer at NHIF.
Yes, this is the guy who was taking a chopper to work.
Yes.
Allegedly.
Right. Allegedly.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're the ones who are running with that matter, but I am aware of it. Yes, it's part of the multi-agency task force.
But I guess what the question that Mercy is asking is, you find in many cases you'll go for the procurement officer, an account manager, but this person most likely was acting in cahoots with others.
Up to the board level sometimes.
Up to board level. And
Yes,
once
but
you come for
from-
this person, then you leave out the other people who are still running in the board. So you've just removed one of their conduits. They just recruit a new conduit.
As you've heard, the people I've mentioned, there hasn't been a procurement officer yet.
Yeah.
It's mostly accountants, and you may have a point that they're working in cahoots with others. And this is the point of investigations. We have a department that does what is called asset tracing.
Okay.
And they will just follow the money, follow the assets, and identify who else may have been a beneficiary. But in most cases, if you find this person, and the reason maybe it is more conspicuous, is because these are the money people.
Right, these are the moneyed people. Speaking of them being the moneyed people, Philip, then what happens to these monies? Because we're probably going to see, if we can hang on to probability, we're probably going to see a lot more if it's going to be collected from these individuals. What will then be done with this money that's forfeited by these individuals now in the near future?
All right. What the law provides for is for the money to go back to the PS Treasury. That's in the Anti-Corruption Economic Crimes Act. I am aware there's another bill which is to set up an asset recovery fund. And perhaps it is to address this concern. This money already comes from government, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then it is stolen by corrupt officials. Then we take it back to the same government. So perhaps one of the considerations is, why don't we have it in an asset recovery fund?
Yeah.
And the fund will have a manager, and this money will be applied to things which people have discussed and agreed upon. Yeah, so that is something which is in the pipeline. There's an asset recovery fund bill.
Okay.
Yes, and also going forward perhaps this is in line with what the CEO of EACC, Mr. Twalib, was talking about.
Yes.
This is an opportunity for people to return these assets. The same way EACC is returning to the state, anybody who feels that they might get into trouble because of possessing assets which may have been acquired corruptly, this is the time they can come and say, you know what, maybe I did something wrong, and I would like, as a show of good faith, to start by returning these assets.
And is this without fear of prosecution, Philip?
That is part of the negotiation.
Uh-huh.
It does not mean that this person will be absolved. Let me give you an example. If somebody is a habitual thief, and they have been stealing from one institution to the next institution to the next institution, that is not likely the kind of person who will negotiate to recover the assets without prosecution. And I would just like to advise our listeners, the recovery must happen. Whether they are prosecuted or not, the recovery will happen. So all we are saying is, don't waste our time 2 years in court. Give us the money first.
Right.
I think
Then we'll listen to what you have to say.
you need to expound on that. When you say the recovery must happen irrespective of prosecution, what do you mean? That you'll take me to court
What I
for
mean is,
corruption, but you'll have taken the money first?
Exactly. In many cases, for example, Amuti was never charged.
Right.
And this is one of the unique features of unexplained assets. Forfeiture of unexplained assets is not dependent on prosecution. So Amuti has not been found guilty of corruption. He has been found to be in possession of assets way beyond his known legitimate sources.
Right.
And because he couldn't explain, and it is believed it was acquired through corruption, he has to forfeit.
But
so that is the beauty of forfeiture.
But you still go to court. I mean, you cannot make that decision unilaterally. As EACC sit back and decide, Amuti, we want your money. You must get...
No. Yes. Thank you for that, Eric. It is the court which is determining.
Okay.
Yes, and a lot of work goes into it before it reaches court.
So here there are two things. Let me get it straight. There are two things here. That there is one that we have been able to prove that you cannot explain how you found your wealth or you acquired your wealth. One, and two,
Exactly.
which is independent, is whether you're guilty of corruption or not. Is altogether, these are two different things at the same time.
Exactly, and there's a reason why it was designed that way. We are signatories to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption.
Yes.
And corruption by nature is very complex. And in some cases, it involves, for example, people who are fugitives. So Eric has disappeared with 100 million. And is gone somewhere we can't get him, like Ecuador. But the assets are here. I, as the lawyer for EACC, should be able to go to court and say, Eric did 1, 2, 3,
Right.
and acquired these assets, and they need to come back to the state. The other example is perhaps the corrupt person is deceased. Again, we should be able to go for the assets, even if that person is not reachable.
Okay.
So the unexplained assets regime is designed to help us recover the assets, even if we cannot ultimately prove what he did.
Okay.
This is very similar to, the proceeds of crime and anti-money laundering. Yes, so for money laundering, you don't need to prove the predicate offense.
Okay.
We just need to prove that this money is a proceed of a crime. In EACC's case, it's a proceeds of corruption.
Sounds to me,
Stay on the line,
question,
Philip.
yeah.
Then we continue with this conversation. We just want to take a look at traffic shortly. And then we come back and continue this conversation. And we'll open up the phone lines for anybody who's got a question for the EACC to also call in and ask. Maybe somebody may even want to forfeit some of their ill-acquired wealth.
On air.
Right
on
here
air,
on
no
air.
less.
Philip Kagoshia is the Assistant Director for EACC. He's basically EACC's lawyer. He's talking about landmark ruling that they've gotten from the Supreme Court and how now that they can basically come back and take any wealth from you. I'm not going to go beyond that because there are some technical words that Philip is using that must be used, I believe, in this. Let's take a look at traffic. It's 22 minutes to 9 o'clock.
All right, let's see how it may have changed. Still looking really slow on Thika Road not tomorrow, today. This moment, because of the accident that was experienced earlier. Still asked to use the service lane this morning, and you can get back on the main in a short while. There's no traffic on Waiaki Way. It's moving slow though, right around the Uhuru Highway, then getting towards the roundabout at the University Way. Now, apart from that, it looks pretty good. Mombasa Road, where we had an issue before, that has all cleared up now, and then you can move really quickly, swiftly in and out of the CBD. If anything changes, we'll be sure to let you know. Let us know what you see. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let's keep it moving this Monday morning.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room, we have Eric Latte, Ruto, Dr. Marcy Korir, and on the line joining us is EACC Assistant Director Philip Kagushia, who is talking to us about, the kind of new wins that they have had with the EACC in the war against corruption. There's a lot that's happening. There's a lot that's been happening with the EACC and the fight against corruption that, sometimes just like Colonel Cyrus Agono was saying, let's highlight the positives. These are some of those positives that we are talking about. But also when there are negatives, we'll hit you hard. If you've got any questions or comments to the EACC, 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Also join the conversation on our social media handles, Spice FM KE on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, where we're live streaming.
Philip, a question for you as we go on. Just from if you, with people most times making a plan in terms of what needs to come in, if you cast your eyes forward, can you see that there's a plethora of cases through which a lot of public funds then could return to the Treasury because of this ruling now?
Absolutely, and myself and my colleagues have a number of cases which are being litigated. Of course, you're aware, if it's before the courts, we may not discuss them, but This is what is happening. The only thing that happened in the Amuti case is that it was so dramatic, started out in 2008, and was only conclusively determined in 2017 before it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court passed its ruling last month. Yes.
Philip, looking at the whole issue of corruption, and the EACC starts with ethics. If you look at an example of Bungoma, where they had 620-litre jerrycans for 10,000 shillings. I know this is recent, but looking at all of this, where does the issue of addressing ethics and processes come in? Because we have processes, yes, but it's breach of some of these processes then that lead to loss of public money, public assets.
I agree with you entirely, because we have the systems to try and keep the process transparent. But the people who violate those systems are like you and me. Okay, and we become clever and we find a way of maneuvering around those procurement procedures. So now, in terms of ethics, that comes down to values, because you can have any amount of laws. You could have institutions like EACC, DCI, asset recovery, but still, if it is not instilled within ourselves, people will still find ways of doing funny things like those jerrycans in Bungoma. Yes.
But shouldn't that be somewhere top of the list? Because if you plug that particular tap or you close that tap, then what you're dealing with here downstream with trying to recover assets will be much less. Shouldn't we try and address that?
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's why at the very beginning I said that if you look at EACC's mandate, it's to prevent and combat corruption. There's an entire directorate dedicated to prevention, and you'll find all sorts of things, including education, training, public awareness. So these are things we are doing. We're not doing one thing and leaving the other. All these are prongs we're using to deal with corruption.
Would getting an public example work? I know some people have had drastic measures like line up all these people that are being alleged or thought to have stolen ABC and D and do some, I don't know, public flogging, something that would deter people. Should we get an example that will serve iwe funzo kwao na wengine kama wao?
I have to say there is that desire in many Kenyans, and many people we talk to tell us, why can't we take more drastic measures? But remember, we live in a country which we follow the law, they follow the rule of law, there is a constitution, the constitution protects individuals' rights, and that is why if we go back to the Amuti case, the whole process of writing to him first is to protect his rights. The whole process of taking him to court is also to give him a fair trial. So people have rights to own property, they have rights to a fair administrative action, and we try and balance our, we have coercive powers, but we need to balance that against the law.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are a number of cases that you're pursuing, Philip, in court. Some of them are in court, maybe some other are in investigation stages. But, just looking roughly at this kind of cases, for example, standard gauge land, the National Land Commission, several cases. Standard gauge land in Embakasi, compensation by Kenha in Mombasa, active investigations, 4 on SGR investigation, illegal allocation of land in Machakos. All of these cases. And looking, if we just take a look at the case that you just won, that's taken 16 years in court or so. I mean, when do we ever expect to see a conclusion of some of these cases?
What has happened in the recent past is that we have a dedicated division of the High Court to deal with anti-corruption matters. The former Chief Justice, Dr. William Mutunga, set up the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Division. That was in 2016.
Yep.
And it is no surprise that soon after that, the cases started being heard and concluded, mostly within less than 24 months. So whatever issues we had about all the cases taking long, that is no longer the case with regard to the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Division specifically.
Yep.
The place where we still have a bit of a challenge is the Environment and Land Court. I think, Eric, if you have a plot somewhere and you're fighting with your neighbor and you try and take a date today, I think you'll be given a date in 2021.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that is a problem that is unique to that division. But in terms of the anti-corruption division, everything is now moving at an accelerated pace. So all those investigations and all those cases will be concluded within reasonable time.
Can I ask you, Philip, what, apart from the time that it takes, what else frustrates you as the EACC? What frustrates the process?
There are a number of things. For instance, if you're dealing with corrupt people and you know what they are like, you know they're corrupt anyway. And corruption fights back.
Yep.
So one of the major frustrations we've experienced is perhaps the documents disappearing or being destroyed. I think I saw a statistic of 4 county offices going up in flames.
Yes.
Yeah.
In about 1 year. Those are the kind of things where you know what has gone wrong. You were supposed to collect the documents. By the time you get there, because we request the documents officially. The moment they realize something is afoot, they try and destroy the evidence.
Yep.
The other frustration, because I know maybe people don't realize this, but corruption is collusive in nature. It will be a deal between Eric and Du. So nobody is really complaining there.
Right.
Yeah.
So EACC is coming from the outside. It's not like an assault case.
There's a complainant.
Eric saw somebody punch someone else in the bar so they can be a witness. But this is a collusive case. These people are doing a deal.
Yes.
So those are the kind of frustrations that we have in getting those documents. Again, corruption investigations are complex in nature because remember, this money moves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And these corrupt people, they're smart. What we are doing most of the time is almost reactive. because we are arriving after the fact.
Yeah.
So imagine they've taken this money and it is moved through several accounts, it's been withdrawn in cash, it has bought assets in another person's name, all those sorts of things. So corruption investigations are very, very complex. So that's one of the challenging things, and that's why you might find an investigation took long before it goes to court.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go to the phone lines, Philip. Barry is calling in, and I believe he has a question. Good morning, Barry.
Eric, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay. First, I have 3 questions for Philip. But first, let me commend him for the good job they're doing at EACC. Then I think my first question to Philip, is there a threshold, and is there a threshold to trigger an EACC asset recovery process, and what are the steps that are that take place to first of all identify a potential asset recovery case, and how do they pursue it? That's the first question. The second question is that as he has correctly said, corruption is multifaceted. For every corruption in the public sector, there is also a component in the private sector. So we see EACC getting so and doing a commendable job on public sector employees or servants, but we're not seeing an equal thing in the private sector. Yeah. So what are the follow-up mechanisms to follow up the entire corruption chain, both in the public and the private sector?
All right.
Then I think the third and the last question is, but there I'm an accountant by profession. So probably some of these things we've experienced them more. Now I can tell you for free, Eric, an accountant in a corruption chain is a mortician. Is in the tail end of the process.
Comes at the end.
He comes at the end of the process. Let me tell you, the real corruption, especially in public sector, takes place during budgeting. At the budgeting process, that's where deals are cut. That's where strategies are laid.
Yeah.
That's where everything happens. But we you realize that the budgeting does not happen in the same office where the accountant sits or the finance manager sits. It happens elsewhere. Now, is this fact known to EACC, and what are they doing about it?
All right. Good questions.
Those are my big questions. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Okay.
Philip, go.
All right. So in response to Barry, we don't necessarily have a threshold to trigger investigations for forfeiture of assets, but we do have a strategy. And the strategy is to deal with what we believe would be of greater impact to the people of Kenya. So the things that may contribute to the high impact cases include the value of the subject matter. So in this case, if you have a guy with 100 million, that will probably get higher priority than a 2 million case. And that's why all the cases I mentioned to you, I think only this Amuti one is below 50 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, the others are quite high. And how the information reaches that is 2 ways. One, we may get a complaint, somebody may report and say, I know a public officer who is living way beyond his means. Okay, and this is where we require the public out there to join us in the fight and bring us the information. And the other side of it is we have intelligence-led investigations. So that's probably something that people are not aware of, but we have officers who are trained and highly capable, and they can sniff out these people.
So you've got people of Mushane out here in the estates looking at my lifestyle.
Intelligence.
Okay.
With regard to the private sector, right now the private sector corruption we are directly empowered to deal with is bribery. This is because of the Bribery Act of 2016. It says EACC can investigate private sector bribery. But with regard to the other forms of corruption, you will see that in the cases where we have succeeded, there are often private individuals involved. Because, for example, if you have somebody who was unexplained of, one of the things they tend to do is register property in the names of their spouses or their children, and they still take these people to court because you need an order saying that that property has to come back. So the private sector is also affected in that sense.
How about in money laundering?
Exactly the same. There have been a couple of recent judgments, including some people who were found with ivory and so on and so forth. And the guy who was trading the ivory had bought vehicles and registered them in his wife's name, and those vehicles were also declared proceeds of crime.
Okay.
Yeah, so notwithstanding that the ultimate person holding it is a private person, private individual, it will still be forfeited.
Okay.
Okay.
I noticed that Barry says he's an accountant, and he claims the accountant is only doing a postmortem. But this is where we talk about individual responsibility, because at some point, somebody will approve something, somebody will sign off on some expenditure, and that is what comes back to bite them. So they need to be careful, and I liked Barry, and if he's interested, next time we advertise for positions, he should join my team.
Voila, there's one out there.
So just to answer him, are you aware that the corruption starts at that budgeting stage? And do you have intelligence that is sniffing out the budgets of various organizations, public organizations?
Absolutely, and this is the reason why you see, when I talk about the investigation process takes long, and it is fairly complex. By the time you see some of these high-profile cases being brought to court, it means the investigation has been very extensive. These people have gone and found out where the source, the genesis of the problem was, and that is why these people have ended up with pockets full of cash. Yes.
Philip, in the line of getting information, as you say, you have intelligence out there, and Eric says people of Mushane. There is an option to report anonymously or via phone, either SMS or email. Are these secured? Because even if it's anonymous, it's through the EACC portal, or rather, you have to log in through somewhere. Your URL or your, what's it called, the IP address will be indicated somewhere, so it can really be traced back to you. So for people who want to report anonymously, how anonymous is this anonymous, so that people are more willing to come out and say, I think Eric is living beyond his means?
Okay, I get that concern because sometimes somebody actually walks into the office and says, I want to report, but I don't want my name recorded. So that is one kind of anonymous. But there's the way in which you log into the EACC portal, and you do not need to leave any details other than that this is the complaint. This is the issue that you have observed. And that is secure. And remember, we really try and take care of the people who will ultimately be our witnesses. There's a witness protection agency which will deal with that. And under the Bribery Act, we also have what we call whistleblower protection. So basically, a person who is a whistleblower should not be victimized for that. So the system is safe. It is foolproof. People should be able to make those reports without fear of reprisal.
There are instances where we have heard complaints, EACC investigations taking long, and finally, when it comes to prosecution, that's when somebody is actually hearing that they've been under investigation. And maybe at some point, people come and say, well, they were investigating Ndu, who's my partner, but I did not even know that Ndu had any corrupt dealings. And I've also been enjoined in this particular case. But somebody is taken to court. Their record shows that they have been taken to court by the EACC. And at some point, they're wondering, so how do I clear my name out of this?
What I can say about that, Eric, is that is simply not true. Because remember, we operate, as I said, within the rule of law. And one of those fundamental principles is giving this person a fair chance to explain himself. So there is nobody who gets to court without having been invited to EACC for an interview, without being given an opportunity to record a statement, to clarify his position. No one. It does not happen. In any event, have you ever heard of a case where there is no statement cases don't proceed if there are no statements. I think this is well known.
Yeah.
Yes. So there is nobody who ends up in court without going through every stage of the process.
Philip Kagushia, we want to thank you very much for joining us this morning. And,
Thank you very much for having me.
just like Barry and many others have said, congratulations and keep up the good work at the EACC. Keep fighting the difficult fight.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric, and Lou for having us.
Thank you very much,
we will
Philip.
continue holding the flame.
But listen, we want the big fish. We want blood on the streets.
Okay.
It's all talk and talk and talk, and we want blood on the streets.
Eric is not shy about
as I
his
told you.
position.
Yeah, I know he has people lined up in Uhuru Park.
Yes.
No. We are a professional institution and we will follow the law.
Asante sana, Philip.
Thanks,
Have a
Philip.
good day.
All right.
Coming up to the top of the hour, just to remind you, today's proverb is a Ghanaian proverb from the Kumasi people, no, the Ashanti actually of Ghana. When a king has good counselors, his reign is peaceful. When a king has good counselors, his reign is peaceful. We'll be talking about one of the kings in the next hour. Good morning. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now coming up to 9 o'clock. Our conversation in the next hour is political, so we're opening up the phone lines from the onset, 0719 012 600.
Okay, so let's see what it looks like. It's actually not bad for a Monday morning. We don't see much traffic in different pockets of the city of Nairobi today. There's some construction happening right around the Olusereni, so that affects the new road in that area, and that will hold up traffic just a little bit, but it won't be too bad this morning. So I can't see anywhere where anybody's having a headache. If you do, please let me know, but for now it seems that you can move along. I have to say though, if you're public or private transport, use your mask, protect yourselves and others. It's still going on, and we want to make sure that COVID doesn't get the better of us. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter, so we can keep it moving.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political
2
observer,
minutes
a
after 9.
fountain
Thank
of
you very
wisdom.
much for tuning in to the Situation Room. It's also Kenya's biggest conversation. We are in Nairobi, 94.4. We broadcast to Mombasa, 87.9. 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 Nyeri, Malindi, 97.7. We live stream this show on digital platforms, www.spicefm.co.ke. We're live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on Twitter, Spice FM KE, on YouTube. Our channel is Spice FM KE. Join the conversation on Instagram, Spice FM KE, and also you can call in 0719 012 600. So, working from home, it doesn't mean that you only focus on COVID-19. Politicians work from home doing politics. Doctors are working from the front line fighting COVID-19. The rest of us, we are working in the studio doing everything and bringing you the information. So let's now bring you the information about the politicians and how they are working from home today and what they're up to. The Nation headline says a day of long knives for Ruto allies. The Standard headline says Jubilee shocker. They're all talking about the same thing. One. So the latest information here we know is that Jubilee has gone into a post-election coalition with the Kenya African National Union, Chama ya Jogoo, Chama ya Baba na Mama, KANU. So we have a post-election coalition, and this has already been acknowledged by the Registrar of Political Parties, confirming that the coalition agreement is in place and it has been lodged with her. This is between Jubilee Party and KANU. So this is in place. Already, we also know that there's going to be a Senate Parliamentary Group meeting today that has been called by the leader of Jubilee Party, President Uhuru Kenyatta, at State House. And what is expected here, if we listen to what Jubilee Vice Chairman David Murathe has said, this is the time for Majority Leader Murkomen and Kehika to leave their positions. It's a day of long knives. So basically, it's a push to get the Ruto allies out of this party, especially the leadership positions of the party, and change the leadership positions in parliament with those who are friendly to the Kieleweke side, or to the side that takes the orders directly from the president, who is the party leader. Politics. High octane politics.
It's going to be a hot day.
If it were not for Corona, this would have been big news, reverberating up to Russia.
I'm like, I thank God for the coronavirus every day, because our weekend would have been marred by mud slinging
Political
from one corner
funerals.
to the other.
There would have been questions and answers and rebuttals
Yeah.
across the country. A funeral in one area would have been answered at a church service west, and another answer would have been given east at a fundraising,
A
and it would
press
have been
conference
answered
addressed
at
by
a press
many
conference
leaders.
in Nairobi. It would have been all over the place. But unfortunately, COVID has decided, look at me, I'm the new
God.
kid on the block. You must look at me, and this is what we're dealing with right now. You may have your conversations, but at the end of the day, all attention must still be turned to me.
Yeah.
However, these fellows, ladies and gentlemen, are still going to have their day in the sun, as it were, and they're going to be discussing these issues. Unfortunately, with every game, there will be losers and there will be winners. And it looks like strategy has already been put in place by the owner of the party. And he knows not just what he wants, but he's also been able to wield to the wants and desires of those whom he has surrounded himself with, as allies do in any kind of battle. Right? So there's something I want, there's something my allies want, there's something that other people who may have not necessarily picked a side in the past also want. Can we come together to do something even stronger? Absolutely. Does anybody lose? Not really. So can we form something so strong that it's very difficult for any kind of water to get through?
Yep.
But the end game at the end of the day is to remove this person who may be causing us any kind of problems. And that is what they're going
This
after.
is the end game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
End game is, I want people who listen to me playing on my side. I'm the captain, and I do not want to be asking players. I'm the coach, and I don't want to have a captain out there in the field who is just looking at me and telling me, up yours. We're not going to execute this. I want somebody who does this. So the owner of the party is basically taking control of the party. Chama iko na mwenyewe.
Clean
And
house here.
as Murathe says here, how can you be given a job and you start fighting the one who gave you? Where on earth? Their removal has been long overdue. We need order and focus in the party. That's Murathe. This is there's another group who was thinking that possibly they should be reprimanded for not representing the party as is in the Senate. But it looks like it's a messy divorce, this one, and itapita na watu wengine.
Is it going to be messy, noisy, and loud like what Wetangula went through? His was messy, noisy. So this is the allies of President Uhuru Kenyatta in the Senate. All right, these are members now with the new coalition in place. Gideon Moi, the chairman of KANU, Baringo Senator, Samuel Pogisio, West Pokot Senator, Nyeri Senator Ephraim Maina, Kimani Wamatangi of Kiambu, Abshiro Halake nominated, Charles Kebiru of Kirinyaga, Golich Wario of Tana River, Irongo Kangata of Muranga, Margaret Kamar of Uasin Yusuf Haji of Garissa, Njaron Dwega of Embu, Abdullahi Ali of Wajir, Gethiomi Mwangi of Nyandarua, and nominated senators including Isaac Mwaura, Beth Mugo, Iman Falhada, and Wako Naomi. These are those who are punching from, shall we call it, the red side.
Right.
All right, on the red corner. And Ruto allies, now let's just give him the yellow one because looking at him as URP.
Okay,
Going back to
go.
factory
Okay,
resets.
Go for it.
Ruto allies in the Senate: Lamu's Anwar Loitiptip, Kipchumba Murkomen, Elgeyo Marakwet, Aaron Cheruiyot of Kericho, Mohamed Mahmoud of Mandera, Mithika Linturi of Meru, Keheka Kimani of no, this is not Keheka Kimani. Surely you've written Keheka
Yes.
Kimani. Surely no. Susan Keheka
Susan Keheka.
of Nakuru, Samson Cherargei of Nandi, Steve Lelegwe of Samburu, Christopher Langat of Bomet, John Kenyo of Laikipia, Kithure Kindiki Tharaka Nithi, Hargura Godana of Marsabit, Michael Mbito of Trans Nzoia, Philip Mpaye of Kajiado. Others are nominated senators: Farahia Ali, Christine Zawadi, Mary Seneta, Victor Prengei, Millicent Omanga, and Alice Milgo.
The battle lines have been.
Sounds like Ruto has more.
It
Yeah.
does.
Very
It looks
good.
like-
Or is it longer
looks
names?
like-
No,
well,
no.
It looks like he has a couple more here. Is it longer names? No. But the battle lines have been drawn. And I think in no uncertain terms, nobody was actually secretive about what their position was or on which side they were, just by things that they were able to say or do. But look, I think this is very interesting that a couple of days ago we talked about the fact that everybody had been quiet for a certain period of time. And then come when things seem to have been rumbling in the belly of the government in
Yep.
terms of COVID, everybody had something to say. And across board, across these two lines, whether it was a senator or a member of the National Assembly, somebody had something to say then about COVID. And you'll find that, interestingly enough, on one side, it knew no sides in this uproar against what was happening or not happening in government. But when you see this now, and what we're hearing is that you will see the split. And in this one, it'll be clear. Where you have spoken up against what the president has been doing, or where you've been on his side. That's what, it's clear. It's clear in this
Is
case.
it justified, though, to remove Kipchumba Murkomen as Senate Majority Leader? Has he gone against the wishes of the party?
I don't think it's that he's gone against the wishes of the party. I think that it's that he has aligned himself to the individual who seems to have gone against the leader of the party. Not that he's done anything wrong. It's just not that he has gone against you. It's that he has aligned himself with somebody who may not be pandering to your wishes.
That's those that may say that
But here they've been called errant members of the
Yeah.
party.
errant.
They're
Their wings
being
have grown too long and they're
Yeah.
going to be clipped.
yes, as errant
Right?
members of the party. Not that there is a messy, or is it a divorce yet?
Yeah.
There's a strained relationship somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So they're totally dissociating that from this. So these particular ones are errant members. That's why we want to sort them out. It's not related to this other relationship. In fact, they're saying the deputy president has been invited to this meeting. Whether he comes or not is something else.
Would you go if you were him? I would.
I would.
I would attend the meeting. In fact, all the senators should attend the meeting. Sit
everyone.
there.
And hear what needs to be, what is
Yeah.
going to be said. I think it's absolutely necessary for
But
that
then
to
it
happen.
could also be a moment to be embarrassed. But how would you be embarrassed?
But
It's a
how?
closed door. I mean, all of you are just sitting there.
No,
Face to
but
face.
if you look at it, this other side has 17, you have 20. All of you go with your members. If it's a shouting match, shout at each other. Just maintain physical distance.
Tukanyangane.
Maintain physical.
Maintain physical
Maintain
distance.
physical distance so that we don't start attending to emergencies of who was clobbered where. So let's just sort it out there, because now luckily they cannot use wananchi out here to fight their wars.
Let's look
Because
at
that's
what
usually what happens in the fields and in the crusades and those
out
rallies.
there in church.
Yeah. So
in
let them go
church
and sort it
functions.
out by themselves.
Looking at two instances where the Senate Majority Leader has, come out. For example, in the issue of Governor Waitito's impeachment. Okay, so Senator Kipchumba Murkomen had proposed, and that's his position in as the Senate Majority Leader. He had said, let's have a committee that's established, and that is true to the standing orders, a committee that's established to investigate this matter of the impeachment of Kiambu Governor. And these are the proposed members to that committee. Of course, some of them included Susan Keheka and others. And he received serious pushback in the Senate from the people now on the other side, from the Kieleweke side, who got serious support from KANU and who got serious support from ODM. At that point was playing, pussyfooting on one issue or the other. James Orengo saying, all right, yeah, It's okay, we accept. The vice chairman of that committee, the chairman of that committee was going to be the Kakamega senator, who's an ODM member. But then we saw serious pushback. And among those people who were leading that pushback at that point, if you remember, was Samuel Pogisio, the West Pokot senator. So you could see KANU at that point worked with the Kieleweke side and overturned what Kipchumba had wanted to be a committee, and it went to a committee of the whole house. Another issue is when Governor Mike Muvi Sonko signed off some functions to the national government. Senator Kipchumba Murkomen went to the Senate and he issued a personal statement and said, I do not agree with this move. I don't think this is the right move to take. So probably those are some of the instances where you can see the Senate majority leader is not going according to what the owners of the party, so to speak, wanted. And so this is an opportunity for them to just say, look, you get out, we have somebody else. Maybe the move is just starting in the Senate and then it shall come to the National Assembly.
Trickle down.
To the National Assembly.
Or trickle across. In this case, not necessarily trickle down, trickle across.
Cross to the other side.
Yeah. I think it's going to be an interesting result to see what will happen, and it suffice to say that even now people are not going to be pleased. There's going to be a lot of ruckus. It's not going to be, all right, this is what you want to do, all right, thank you very much, it's fine, we'll walk away and we'll continue business as usual. It's not going to be. I think this now is going to be the genesis of yet some more scuttles in leadership, whether it is the Senate and, like you say, going to the House of to the National Assembly. You will see the ripple effects of this, and you get to the point because look, it's not that all of these things happen at the same time by chance. That you have a coalition already being put in place, that you have a meeting with the Senate to say that some people, we've seen the way in which you've been speaking, and we've decided we don't really like this, we're going to sort that out. It can't be that all of these things are coincidental. And with the eye on the prize in this case being 2022, where the election comes about, people are putting on their shoes and strapping up their boots now to get ready. And these are indicators of the fact that people are not going to say, okay, well, COVID, let's put it. No. In this time, people are still preparing themselves because they realize if we don't get to work now, all of this that we see, the cracks that we see already are going to be huge gashes, and we're not going to be able to do anything about it later. So let's deal with it now, strap our boots, get ready, and get in line. And this is what's happening. And unfortunately, people are going to be left by the wayside. Will the deputy president attend this meeting? In my opinion, I think he should. Go and face what it is that you're actually being presented with and know what it is. If your strategy is going to be something different, it will be very interesting to see what that would be. But it is clear that people have already drawn their swords, and they've spent some time sharpening them. Yeah. They've drawn them now, and it's battle time, and this is what we see.
Indeed, a day of the long knives, as you put in.
Yep.
Yeah, those knives are swords. It's interesting. Usually, when this comes out, we're just seeing but a tip of the iceberg. There's a lot simmering down here, and it's just a matter of time. And if you can tell from the kind of talk and quotes that people are saying here, like, the meeting is on, Murkomen and Kihika are the target. It was long overdue. It means people have been holding back for quite some time. It was, they are dying to go and chop off these particular people. And they've said after this, we'll go to the National Assembly, and we don't care where Duale's heart is politically. We agree that he has pushed effectively national government interest at the National Assembly. He has delivered on any assignment the president has given him in the House. That's according to Morathe, but they don't care where his heart is politically. We don't care.
He has done a good job, but
we are on a purge. We're removing anyone and everyone seemed, rumored, seen, obviously, to be errant.
What should William Ruto do, the deputy president now, the deputy party leader of Jubilee, who clearly is not the one who he has not endorsed this coalition with KANU. He has not endorsed any move to change the National Management Committee of Jubilee Party. He's been left out. What should his options be? We'll open up the phone line 0719 012 600. Let's take a look at weather.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, let's take a look into Nairobi right now. Mostly cloudy conditions still. We see it's warming up a little bit at 19 degrees. However, it will be raining in a short while. 22 degrees the high and lows of 15. In Nyeri, mostly cloudy this morning at 18 degrees. 22 degrees the high when the showers come in. In Nakuru at partly cloudy conditions at 19 degrees. We'll see highs of 23 during showers. In Eldoret, it's mostly cloudy at 17 degrees. Thunderstorms expected with highs of 22 and lows of 13. Kisumu this morning is mostly cloudy. We'll see 23 degrees currently and highs of 26 with lows of 19. And the showers still continue. It's still coming down in Mombasa, 26 degrees. It will be this way for most of the day, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Malindi still continues to pour down at 26 degrees. We'll see highs of 28 today and lows of 25. The same is the condition in Kampala, with the rains coming down throughout the day, highs of 24 and lows of 20. Dar es Salaam at 27 degrees is mostly cloudy. We'll see light rain showers with highs of 29 and lows of 24. And in Johannesburg, the weather is at 9 degrees now. Clear skies all through. It'll be warming up to highs of 22 and lows of 7. It's rainy conditions throughout Lagos today. Thunder showers is what they're being called. Highs of 30 rather, and lows of 20 in Lagos today. We'll take a quick look into New York, where the sun will be coming up soon, and it will be 11 degrees when it does. There will be showers in the afternoon with highs of 17 and lows of 6. Looking at Paris this morning, and rainy conditions throughout the day with highs of 15 and lows of 6. Finally, for today, we look into London, where it's sunny all through at 6 degrees as the evening comes in. It'll be 12 the high and lows of 4 with mostly cloudy conditions.
23 minutes after 9. This is the situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Jubilee shocker. Today is a day. Today is Leo ni ile siku. Basically, the president is hosting senators at State House, and what we are hearing is that the agenda is to have a change in leadership in the Senate. Senate Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen, Senate Whip Susan Keheka are going to be finding their way out, and the new coalition partners, this is some leaders from KANU, including Samuel Pokisio and others, are going to come in. So Samuel Pokisio is touted to be the one who's going to take over Senate Majority Leader, and then the Muranga Senator, Irongo Kangata, is the one who's going to be the Majority Whip. Now, let's ask for your opinion. 0719-012-600. What should William Ruto do in the face of all what's happening now? Crossover to the phone lines, Mombasa. In Mombasa, Harold is calling in. Good morning, Harold.
Morning, how are you?
We are well,
morning.
thank you.
Well, thank you.
Now, what I think about this situation,
Yep.
is that the die is cast. This has been a long time coming. And you see, politically, we need to look at the agenda here. And where for Ruto it has been all about 2022.
Yep.
I think for the Uhuru side it's between now and 2022, and then the issue of 2022. So what it comes down to is who wields more power. And unfortunately, for Ruto, his side backed themselves into a corner. Because the idea of numbers, we have this, we have that. But what Uhuru wants to reinforce here is that I am the real power in this country. And this party, as you guys have correctly said, is run by me and my people. So the die is cast. Whether Ruto attends or he doesn't attend, I don't think will change anything.
Is immaterial.
Is immaterial.
So what should Ruto do?
I think Ruto needs to go back to the drawing board. His strategy has failed because there's this single-minded purpose that he must be the candidate in 2022. And this is based off his agreement with whatever agreement they had with Uhuru, which Uhuru is not going to honor. I mean, it's just obvious, and so you've got to just go back to the drawing board. I guess broaden your political base, because for Ruto, I think he has backed himself into a corner because his support is drawn mainly from his people in Rift Valley, some people in Central. It's not broad enough for a country like Kenya. And what people need to understand about Kenya, and Raila learned this the hard way, Kenya is not a country of revolution. It's a country of evolution. Where every election cycle, we have incremental improvements in our democracy, so to speak. So you're not going to rock the boat in a way that is earth-shattering.
You can't topple the apple cart.
You can't topple the apple cart. I think Ruto believed that the way they got in 2013, that he was at par with Uhuru. That they were 50-50 partners. But the reality does not bear that.
It's different.
Because you see, the president, once somebody is the president, even in our current constitution, he becomes another animal.
He's all powerful.
You must acquiesce to what he wants and what he needs. And this is what Ruto did not understand.
True that.
He's your boss, not your partner.
Harold, thank you very much for your call.
All right, guys. It's a good one, and have a good day.
You too.
Thanks, Harold.
Kevin in Umoja, good morning. Kevin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Eric, and the crew?
We're fine, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I want to contribute to the topic of today.
Yes, go ahead.
There is this 48 laws of power. There is one that is saying that never ever try to outdo your master. And the issue of our deputy president, his issue is very tricky, because if I was him, if I was his advisor, I would advise him to come out of Jubilee very fast, go and form a vibrant political party. Because all these parties are all about getting into power. If he continues to be in Jubilee, he may end up losing his career. So if he comes out of Jubilee and probably form another political party, or buy small political parties, and then he makes it become a vibrant political party. Then he uses that actually ajaribu tu kuijenga na kuitengeneza na kunini, then
build it from the ground up.
Build it from the ground up. And then start his political move, because if he continues to be in Jubilee, there is nothing good that is going to come out of it. Eventually, it's going to be ousted, because it is in black and white.
Nothing good for him.
Everything. Yes, there is nothing that is going to come out for him. If he continues to wait, we are in 2020, 2021, and in politics, you just need to be very smart, actually. If he doesn't be careful, he may end up losing his political career. Because these people, they are not there to ensure that he becomes, he gets a co-president.
The game is different. Thank you very much, Kevin.
The game is different,
Asante sana. 0719-012-600. What should the Deputy President William Ruto do now that clearly him and his allies are being sidelined and being pushed out of Jubilee? Jubilee has gone into a new coalition with KANU. And also, let's discuss that coalition and the benefits it's likely to bring to Jubilee or to KANU or to both. 9:30, let's take a look at traffic.
Heading to town, there seems to be a little bit of a hold up there, but it's a little bit, and it will be open in just a short while, I'm sure. People have reached where they're going, at least for the morning. Nothing major in places that we don't expect it to be, so nothing to panic about. That's what that means. Last time for now, though, is that you need to wear your masks if you're in public or private even, and make sure that you're protecting yourself and others. Sanitize, wash your hands, and make sure that you're safe. Spice of MKE, in case you see something that pops up that we can share with everybody to make sure that they arrive safe and in good time.
Headlines that started preparing a tradition in our minds for the past 2 weeks. Coalition coming up. A new coalition government is going to be formed shortly. And now we are seeing a coalition has actually been registered. And KANU and Jubilee are now in a post-election coalition. We've seen this kind of thing before. Well, it wasn't under this kind of legal jurisdiction, where after the 2005 referendum, where, Raila and LDP and the other people went against the side of President Moi Kibaki, and they campaigned for no, and they formed Orange. Immediately after that, Moi Kibaki formed a new government, and he called it the GNU, the Government of National Unity. This Government of National Unity, Moi Kibaki sat down with the chairman of KANU, Uhuru Kenyatta, and they agreed to work together. Sat down with the leader of Ford people, and they agreed to go together. And that's how we saw a government that was now reshaped. It brought in William Ole Ntimama of KANU. It brought in Simeon Nyachai coming into the government. And the people who were previously working with Raila were kicked out, basically all in one, including Charity Ngilu, who had worked with Moi Kibaki earlier.
And it's interesting as you look at the timeline of that. Clearly, if you look at what happened after people voted no, and overwhelmingly so, the no side took the day, right?
Yep.
Now, after that, it was clear that either we need to put it to this guy who led this thing. And the way we are going to be able to do that is essentially not just kick him out of, but everybody else around him out of government to yield a certain result.
Kick the band out.
There you go. And we see the same thing playing out here. What has happened? It would be said that the deputy president went against many of the directives of the president or was not working hand in hand with the president. All right. So what are we going to do? First of all, we need to cement our position to make sure that going forward, we're a force to be reckoned with, right? It seems that we're already playing with the opposition. So we're going to bring in some of those folks into this anyway. And then we're going to cement past relationships with people who were on our side. And then what are we going to do? Again, not just kick out the gentleman, but people who are also allied to him as well, to make our position even stronger. So if you ask me, this is just history.
This is the brew.
Repeating
This is
itself.
2005 once again.
Here we are in 2020 with the same thing that happened 15 years ago.
Errant members, get out. Trevor calling in from Kisumu. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're
Good
fine,
morning.
Thank you.
My thought on this President Uhuru and William Ruto situation,
Yep.
I think just boils down to they have different temperaments.
Mm-hmm.
You see, on one side, President Uhuru has nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And previously, even before there was a mention of dynasties and all that, my personal thought was the baton was going to be from this person to the other person, of which by then my thinking was Uhuru probably will give Gideon, which I see currently. You see, there's already a coalition. And then there's also this position of the government already has machinery to probably make it more popular. For example, if you look at the people coming in and the crisis that is going on, there's floods in Baringo, there's whatever in Elgeyo Marakwet. If they come out victorious, for example, Ruto decides to go on the other side and start bashing the sitting government, and then they come out victorious on this, or this other coalition comes out victorious, all the trouble zones are in government. So the best way to combat any person who's coming with the Ruto's claims is just make sure you do everything correctly, like use a crisis to give yourself points.
Okay.
And the problem with people allied to Ruto is like they've been sucked in. Like they've been sucked in with his hot-headedness. Things like people like Murkomen, people like Duale, they talk with so much authority at the back of Ruto being hard-headed naturally from ends that 1990 back then when him and Jirongo were, he's naturally like that. And then somebody else like a moth just gets attracted to the sun, gets burned, not really knowing this person, this is his natural character, like win or lose, I'm going to be like this. So for political survival, I think Ruto should just, just throw in the towel, go and bend his knees and say, boss, I did wrong. Yeah, I'm sorry, it is ABCD. Let us just discuss this issue and notice and see what you can do, because currently he has put
So you think he should apologize? His option is go back to the master and apologize and stay in the party.
Whether it's just chini ya maji, just go and talk to the president, kivyake huko, they agree on themselves, not on the public life.
Okay.
They can ease it out. But currently, if you just go there, say sorry, and then see how he can actually save his political career, because 2022 can turn into 2027, and then he'll just be a professional, Raila was a professional opposition leader.
Thank you, Trevor.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Dominic in Kangemi.
Yes, hi, morning.
Hello, morning.
I think Ruto has a very good plan for this thing, because he knows what has been happening in the country. So he's very prepared for it. And okay, in terms of politics, I really love this guy, and I know he has something good for. He's ready for it. I mean, yeah.
So what do you see him doing? What do you see him doing going forward?
That time, we have been seeing Uhuru having his way and then Ruto having his way. But Ruto, I just believe this guy in terms of politics. I think he's the best hapa katikati ya mchezo kwa siasa in Kenya.
Okay, so you're a Ruto fan, that's clear. So you're a Ruto fan, that's clear.
Not that I'm a Ruto fan.
You feel that he has the best to offer right now in Kenya for a leader?
But, okay, not that I'm his fan, but I love his politics. That is it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dominic.
From what I see, the relationship between the president, deputy president, that's long gone. That horse already bolted. So here, I think it's a matter of, if I were Ruto, just watch and see what they will be up to, and just wait for the right time. Because sometimes it's about the timing of when to leave a relationship.
Yep.
If it's broken, it's broken. So it's just about just a matter of time for you to leave the relationship. As many people usually say, the time...
Wait for the kids to grow up.
No. By the time a woman is telling you it is over, it was long over in her head and in her actions and everything. She has a plan B. She's sorted out.
Yeah.
You're the one who will be left in shambles, trying and to understand the situation, make amends and whatnot. So they'll
talk
be long
about it.
Yeah. So if I were that team, just wait for the right time to leave. And then two, as we've seen in this country, political parties are not really a big deal, because most of the time they're just a vehicle. They're just a means to an end.
Yeah.
They do not have any ideology behind it. They do not have any substance, any heavy weighty substance behind them. It's just a means to get into power.
Just a means to an end.
Yeah. So if he lives today, if he lives at the beginning of 2022, I don't think it really matters. They will just get an outfit immediately. Look at 2002. We just got NAC, the Rainbow Coalition. In a few months' time, they were in government. So for me, a political party is not a big deal.
It's just a name.
It's just a name. From the history of this country, people look more at personalities. That's why you find somebody like Raila has lived all of those regimes, and he's still somebody.
Let's go to the phone lines. I've got 4 callers on the line. John in Nyandaro, good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you guys?
We're fine,
good morning,
thank you.
John.
Yes.
What should Ruto do?
Interesting. Well, what Ruto should do
is that he should change his political game plan. Because the mistake that he did was to come and take over the leadership of Central Province, you know, behind the back of the president. And Central Province and Mount Kenya region is the president's backyard. The president has no voice among the MPs in Mount Kenya region, a majority of them, shall I say, which does not end up very well for the president. Secondly, the politics that they brought is not are not very interesting politics. It's politics that we have never seen in Mount Kenya region at any time. Because in my view, the politics are kind of let's be called them tokenized politics. In other words, we have tokenized the politics of
Central
Mount Kenya region. The way Nairobi was tokenized. And it's not a very good picture for Central Province.
Let me go to the other. Let me go to the other caller, John Lazarus, who's also calling in from Kisumu. Lazarus, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I just want to echo what that caller has said. The deputy president, the one mistake he did, he played the president during the Jubilee nominations in Central. So now what the president is doing is trying to clip him, clip the wings. And the other big mistake he did after doing the Central Kenya nominations, they chest stamped. He did not hide his cards, so he made he played the cards openly so early.
Did he play the president, or did he just do what the party wanted to do? I mean, the president allowed him to go and run the nominations.
The moment he went to the Jubilee headquarters, he made sure he planted people he wanted to sing his chorus. People like Ndindi Nyoro, those kind of people. So now the president has realized that at his backyard,
Yeah.
he has got no good support from the MPs.
So what should Ruto do
Because
now? That's our question.
Now he just have to get out and fight from the outside.
Yeah. Quit.
Yeah, he can't fight it from within. The system is so deep.
It's done. Roderick, good morning.
Good morning, my guy.
Good morning,
How you doing, my guy?
How are you?
We're well.
Now the thing is this. Let's now see if the deputy president has come with a knife or a stick in a gunfight. Or he has come with a gun. Because you do not outside your boss. Protect your boss. Just sit around and do nothing.
Roderick, your line is pretty bad. Call again, Roderick.
Hello?
Call again, Roderick. Zachary, good morning.
Oh, good morning, guys.
How you doing?
Good morning.
I'm loving the conversation, and I hope Daktari and Du and the Mwalimos or wherever he is, they are listening and they are doing good.
Mwalimu is good.
Now, the problem that is hitting our friend Mr. Ruto is what we call the Heya or the Heyares syndrome.
Okay.
I know all of you have been near a billionaire or a millionaire somewhere, and you see how the kids behave. That because they know come rain, come shine, what our father has gathered together, we shall eventually be ours. Okay.
Yeah.
And most of them even go to an extent of even plotting against killing their parents if they live for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
They are not going to the other side of the game, so that they amass what their father or mother left. Yeah.
Okay.
That is what is hitting Mr. Ruto. And I hope if you look at the chronology of corruption cases, who is emanating or which side of the Jubilee side is, harboring most of these mega corruption cases.
Yeah.
Okay, I do not want to apportion blame to Mr. Ruto, but most of his guys have been associated with some of these bigger crimes. You see?
Maybe his guys have just been targeted. The corruption is being perpetuated by both sides.
That is the point. But the painter has actually brought out Mr. Ruto as the most corrupt guy, That is another problem. And when Mr. Ruto was told that he is going to be supported by Mr. Kenyatta, I think it got into his head. You see, something that when something goes into a child's kid, into his head, that is now
just what has happened.
That is now the problem.
So
and let me tell you,
what should he do now, Zachary? What should the deputy president and deputy party leader of Jubilee do now?
Well, let me say they have to go. And let me just repeat the words of the caller who said that these guys need to go themselves, both of them. Yeah, they talk, they reconcile, and let Mr. Ruto actually swallow his pride. Okay, let him play through. Let him control his boots soldiers. Yeah. That you have to respect the president. And me and the president, we are the guys who made you what you are. That is those MPs, yeah? Otherwise, if he doesn't do that, this is African politics. And our business is, this is a guy who doesn't respect us. And he is going to be thrown out.
He'll be thrown out.
It is not anybody's wish.
Thank you, Zachary.
Thank you, guys. Have a nice day.
Thanks, Zachary. You too.
Thank you. You too. 0719-012-600 is the number to call. Senator Susan Keheka tweeted yesterday. Now they speak in tongues. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind.
Good affirmation.
Ukitiona hivi sisi sio wenda wazimu.
If you combine that with the tweet by Murkomen that you should know, what was it about not getting intimidated? That was, I think they're just trying to, psych themselves up for what's happening. And
What's coming.
it's actually 9:49. It means this meeting should have been underway for the last 1 hour and some 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a matter of psych themselves up in their fan
Be
base
ready.
that we are ready for this. We'll target this, whether our heads will be on the guillotine
Or not.
or
Roderick
not.
is back.
We're here.
Roderick. Roderick. Your line. Paul. No.
How are you?
All right. A
Okay.
bit better.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Much better.
Okay, what I have to say is I want to refute what Zachariah said. I'm telling him this. There's no way these guys are going back. They are past talking right now. Ruto undermined his oath every juncture all the way because he knew he had been promised this seat. Ruto alitoa makucha mapema sana. And you don't do that when there is a sitting president. You go there and start working with guys like Oledama Olekina behind the president's back, and you expect him just to sit on his loins? The guy will whip you into line, into submission.
Into submission.
So Ruto messed himself up, and being a Raila student, he has shot himself in the leg again. Yeah.
So what should he do now?
Right now,
Exit the
move
party.
out of the party, amusha URP, start campaigning for 2022, anza kutafuta kura for 2022. But now, right now, he's dealing with the boy in the playground with a big stick.
Yeah.
And he'll beat him into pulp. But he has to just stop all these shenanigans. He's fighting inside Jubilee to just make matters worse for him.
Okay.
I know maybe Ruto doesn't want to leave Jubilee because he doesn't know what is the president's kitchen cabinets hold next. So he's maybe holding on. When,
basically, if you ask him
still
to
powerfully.
quit, if you ask him to quit Jubilee, you're basically saying that he resigns as a deputy president as well.
Yes, if he's bold enough, but he can't because he doesn't know what these guys hold.
Yeah.
I don't know what he has to know. What you don't know the power games behind. You see now, the kitchen cabinet of Uhuru Kenyatta is holding, or what cards are they holding?
Stay in that kitchen.
So the
man.
guy is holding in there just to find out what's next.
I think I'll do the same actually if you think about it. Stay in that kitchen. It's smoky, you're fine. You just stay in there.
At least you're in there.
Because you get out of
But
that
it's hot
kitchen.
and smoky at the same time, Bana.
Stay in. You
If you
get
get
out, it's
out.
raining outside.
There are no walls.
Get out.
Better the devil you know.
You get out there, no walls.
Roderick, thank you very much.
Get messy.
Have a good day.
Okay.
0719-012-600. What should Deputy President William Ruto do now that there's this direct onslaught on him and his supporters inside Jubilee? Kipchumba Murkomen, the Senate Majority Leader, tweeted yesterday, Joshua chapter 1 verse 9, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go.
And Edwin Sifuna says,
Then Edwin Sifuna just sent him another quote there and told him, you know what? There's
It is finished.
John chapter 1 verse 7. It is finished. 8
Well,
minutes
that's-
to 10. Good morning.
oh.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
At 7 to 10, we're asking the question, what should the Deputy President William Ruto do? Quitting the party is not really a new thing. Also, in history, remember Uhuru Kenyatta was the chairman of KANU.
Yeah.
When he was the deputy, what was it? Deputy Prime Minister, right? And even Minister for Finance. He was chairman of KANU. In 2002, he left KANU and went into an unknown party called TNA.
Yeah.
And TNA formed a coalition with URP, another unknown party, and they clinched power. So in terms moving out of a party and going to
It's not a big
join
deal.
another small party, not a big deal. when Raila Odinga left KANU, after going into KANU, they went and formed LDP. And it was a big party again. After that, they formed ODM. Out of nothing, just out of Kivuito holding an orange, it became a party. And this is, we've seen it happening all over and all the time. Going back to the phone lines, 0719-012-600. Ken Bogo calling in from Muranga. Good morning.
Hello.
How are you?
Hey, all the way from Muranga County.
Yes. Karibu sana to the Situation Room. What's your view? What should William Ruto do?
Okay, William Ruto kwanza hapa Muranga County.
Yes.
Ameshafanya kazi. Chomesha watoto. Okay, zile kanisa ambazo alikuwa anataka kusaidia watu kutoa pesa walitusaidia vizuri tukaona.
Yep.
So sisi kwanza mimi sijaiona akifanya makosa hapa. Amefanya vizuri sana. Wao wanasemaga wanafanyanga makosa. Hao ni maadui tu.
Hajafanya makosa yoyote.
Lakini hajafanya makosa. Ako sawa kabisa.
Sasa Mbogo, ukiangalia vile mambo inaendelea ndani ya Jubilee. Ruto ni kama anakanyangishwa nje.
Let me tell you. Mahali popote unakuanga, haukusangi watu wawili wanataka kuharibu. So, wenye wanataka kumtoa ni watu ambao hawataki hata kumchagua 2022, lakini kura yangu
ni yake.
Mimi nitachagua 2022. Ni yangu Ken Bogo from Muranga.
Very good.
Tagodhaitha.
Kabisa.
Asante.
Thank you, Ken Bogo. Robert in Nakuru, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Okay, my view from let me give from a scriptural perspective. You don't just pull the mantle from the guy who has the mantle. If you consider Elijah and Elisha, you have to wait. Mantle is not a thing you just give it or just pull it from nowhere. So I think it was wise to submit until you see now the Elijah and the horses are coming and ascending the heaven. Then that's when the mantle will be released. So it was wise to submit, even though there are hiccups.
Okay.
At the very circumstances, it's wise. Yeah.
Thank you, Robert. Patrick in Thika, good morning.
Morning to you.
How are you?
Good morning.
I'm fine.
What do you
I
think?
want to contribute to this topic. I think this is like a football match. It is very clear that Ruto had won the first leg of the match. So, if you see the president now strategizing again, it means there is a problem. So, it's up to Ruto to take his card, go back to the drawing board at halftime, advise his players, and then they kick in the best kick in the last leg of the match. Probably, maybe there will be a game changer. Yeah.
There could be a game changer.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Patrick. David in Nakuru.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Hello.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. The Holy Bible speaks to mankind. Remove a log in your eye before you stick a stake in your neighbor's eye. These guys' document Bible took by quoting us verses that they don't know what they mean. In fact, when Jehovah God looks at fruit, he repents. Because when he tells us he's taking money to church, that he's investing in heaven. What we know, what God prescribed on Jesus Christ and him crucified. Because Jesus is the Savior. You cannot tell us you're taking money to church you're investing in heaven. How? Are you lying to us? Atapata kidogo kutoka kwa Mungu, Eric. These politicians are joking with God. Let them quote us about Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, what have you, Karl Marx, but they should leave
not God.
Good part. They should leave God out of their stupidity. Because at the University of Massachusetts, Eric, you see, you find a doctor, daktari ana kazi, anatafuta job, lakini wa jamaa wanatuchezea. It's very bad. Dr. Murphy.
We heard you, David.
Out here. There's no job. There's no job.
We heard you, David. Thank you. Thank you very much. David in Nakuru. Well, let's see what happens today out of this meeting, whether there's actually going to be a change in leadership coming out of this. As we're coming to the top of the hour, let me just remind you today's proverb. When a king has good councillors, his reign is peaceful. We've got 2 kings here. Choose one. Look at the councillors.
And
is his
apply.
reign peaceful?
And how has it been? Clear your
Keisha.
throat once more time.
It's done. It is done. Dr. Masiko, you say goodbye for the day. It is finished.
It is finished.
It is finished.
Ogwane. It's finished.
It's finished. It is finished. This is it.
Done.
This is it.
This is the end. The last curtain call.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens in the wrangles within Jubilee, the ruling coalition. And now what happens, especially when Jubilee gets into a coalition with KANU. Let's see. Are we going to
put
see
anything past politics, though.
Let's see.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
Oh, absolutely. That we must be prepared for.
Even
as well.
Ruto working with Raila.
Yeah. Don't come in to say I beg.
Okay. It's 10 o'clock. Have a good day. See you tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m.